Chapter 876. Under Sophie's guidance, Qinchuan arrived in front of the Grand Duke's office without any obstructions. Zhou Xian looked at Qinchuan, who was slowly walking over. Her gaze was slightly complicated. There was awe and vigilance in her eyes. This was the first time an early-stage divine transformation cultivator gave her such a threatening feeling. The Grand Duke is in the office. Sophie, the Grand Duke, has ordered for Qinchuan to go in alone. I understand. Sophie nodded and stepped aside, indicating for Qinchuan to enter the office by himself. Qinchuan nodded at Sophie and Zhou Xian, then walked into the office. Zhou Xian looked at Qinchuan's back and sighed. How did he do it? He has such great power at the early stage of divine transformation. Sophie smiled bitterly and said to Zhou Xian, I also want to know why. This is probably the difference between geniuses and ordinary people like us. As soon as Qinchuan arrived in front of the Grand Duke's office, the office door slowly opened, revealing a silver-white corridor. Seeing this, Qinchuan stepped into the corridor. After walking through dozens of meters of corridor, he finally entered the office and saw Angel sitting on the sofa. Welcome, he said. Angel looked at Qinchuan with a subtle gaze. Facing Angel, Qinchuan still maintained the most basic respect. He respectfully bowed and said, Greetings, Grand Duke. Seeing Qinchuan's respectful attitude, Angel smiled and replied, You are much more humble than I thought. Qinchuan smiled and said to Angel, Although I have some good strength, I don't think I have the qualifications to be arrogant in front of a Dongshu stage cultivator. Hearing Qinchuan's words, the way Angel looked at Qinchuan changed. The office also fell into a long silence because of this. After a long time, she sighed and said in a low voice, After so many years, countless people have seen me, but you are the only one who can see through my realm. Can you tell me how you did it? Qinchuan smiled and replied, Intuition. Angel didn't mind Qinchuan's perfunctory answer. She smiled and replied, That's a good intuition. At this point, Angel pointed to a seat at the side and said to Qinchuan, Let's sit down and talk. Qinchuan didn't stand on ceremony. He walked straight to the sofa and sat down. He said to Angel, What does Grand Duke want to talk to me about today? Let's talk about your views on the future development of the humanoid race. Angel personally poured tea for Qinchuan. I don't like to listen to empty words and boastful words. I want to hear the truth. Qinchuan smiled and replied to Angel, If you want me to be honest, then I will be frank. With the current situation of the humanoid race, it is impossible for them to rise again without a miracle. In other words, the hope of the humanoid race rising again is very slim. Miracle? Angel looked at Qinchuan and asked, What do you think a miracle is? Qinchuan thought about it seriously and replied, For example, if an unparalleled genius appeared in the humanoid race and killed everyone he met, he would be unstoppable. He would become the overlord of the universe and lead the humanoid race to rise again. This would probably be considered a miracle. After hearing Qinchuan's answer, Angel smiled and asked Qinchuan, Do you know what kind of person is considered the overlord of the universe? Qinchuan shook his head and replied, I don't know much about this universe, so I don't know what kind of person can be considered the overlord of the universe. At the very least, it has to be a powerful cultivator at the Dongshu stage. Angel also shook her head and replied, The Dongshu stage is nothing. It is at most a starting point. Hearing Angel's words, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. In the past, he had always heard people talk about how powerful and terrifying the Dongshu stage was. This was the first time he heard someone say that the Dongshu stage was nothing and was just a starting point. Don't be surprised. I'm a cultivator at the Dongshu stage. I know this stage better than you. Angel looked at Qinchuan and said indifferently, The reason why the Dongshu stage is called a powerful cultivator and not an overlord is because the Dongshu stage is not qualified to be the overlord of the universe. If you want to become the overlord of the universe, you have to be at the form synthesis stage at least. The form synthesis stage. Hearing Angel's words, Qinchuan was slightly surprised. He asked curiously, What kind of stage is the form synthesis stage? The Dongshu stage means that you can see through the void and completely control at least one kind of power of law to be considered a cultivator at the Dongshu stage. As for the form synthesis stage, it is a more profound and mysterious stage. To be honest, I don't know much about the form synthesis stage, but I know that when your soul, yuan-ing, and physical body merge into one, you can be considered to have stepped into the form synthesis stage. As for how to do it, I don't know. The yuan-ing, physical body, and soul merge into one. Hearing this, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a look of confusion. Although these three existences were related to each other, they were independent of each other. How could they merge into one? Seeing the confusion on Qin Chuan's face, Angel smiled gently and said, "If I could solve your confusion, then I would not be at the Dongshu stage. I would be an overlord of the universe." Qin Chuan asked curiously, "Are there any overlords of the universe in Tron Nebula?" The celestial cluster has a total of more than 30 nebulas, thousands of races, and trillions of people. However, there are only 6 overlords of the universe. These 6 are directly related to the Tian people and are the mainstays that support the entire Tian people. Angel looked at Qin Chuan. "I don't know much about the other star clusters that are further away, but I think they should be similar to the celestial cluster. That is to say, in the entire universe, there are only a few dozen overlords of the universe." Hearing Angel's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but sigh. The universe was so vast, and there were countless races. The population was as endless as the sand in the Ganges River. With such a huge population base, there are only a few dozen overlords of the universe in the entire universe. This number is really too small. Do you think you have a chance to become a universe overlord? Angel suddenly asked Qin Chuan a very special question. Upon hearing this, Qin Chuan was slightly taken aback. Then he smiled and replied, "I can't say for sure, but there will always be a chance." Angel could see that although Qin Chuan spoke humbly, in fact, Qin Chuan was very proud. He had absolute confidence that he could become a universe overlord in the future. She had to admit that Qin Chuan was the most talented and confident young man she had ever met. The geniuses in the Night Spirit Guards were nothing compared to Qin Chuan. Chapter 877. I originally wanted to invite you to join the Night Spirit Guard, but after what happened today, I believe you have no good feelings for the Night Spirit Guard. It's impossible for you to join the Night Spirit Guard. Moreover, I didn't think that the Night Spirit Guard I had such high hopes for would turn out like this. Perhaps this path wasn't feasible from the start. At the mention of the Night Spirit Guards, Angel felt a lot of emotions. Back then, her husband, Grand Duke Andu, had met with misfortune after establishing the Night Spirit Guards. She then re-established the second generation of Night Spirit Guards, wanting to complete her late husband's unfinished business. However, things didn't develop in the direction she expected. The second generation of Night Spirit Guards was far inferior to the first. Dreams are always plentiful, but reality is always thin. Qin Chuan could understand Angel. After all, this was a very grand dream, and people with dreams were always worthy of respect. You're right. I've thought of things too simply, too idealistic. Angel looked at Qin Chuan and said seriously, "I plan to disband the Night Spirit Guard and let everything in the past be in the past." Qin Chuan was surprised to hear this. He asked, "Because of what happened today?" Angel nodded, but then she shook her head and replied, "What happened today can only be considered a fuse. It made me realize that the rise of the humanoid race isn't something that can be accomplished with just a few people. You were right about one thing. It's unrealistic to expect the Night Spirit Guard to lead the humanoid race to rise again." Qin Chuan smiled and said to Angel, "I've already forgotten what I said before, but I feel that this is a good thing. I'm sure you'll be able to relax a little in the future." Indeed, I've been shouldering the grand dream of fighting for the rise of the humanoid race all these years. It's really too tiring. Angel smiled. "Sometimes I really want to let go of these burdens and live a more relaxed and happy life, but I always feel that it's too selfish. This time, I can finally let go of everything. Although the Night Spirit Guard is disbanded, there's one thing I'd like to ask of you, Grand Duke." Chuan looked at Angel. I want to keep little Z and Bayou in Grand Duke's mansion. I hope Grand Duke can help me take good care of them. I owe Grand Duke a favor. If Grand Duke needs anything in the future, I will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Hearing Chuan's words, Angel looked at Chuan with a playful gaze. She asked Chuan, "Aren't you afraid of what happened today happening again? You have to know that human greed is limitless. Bayou is a fatal temptation to some people." Chuan looked at Angel seriously and replied, "I believe in the Archduke. If that's the case, then this matter is settled. But can you tell me what you plan to do next? With your current strength, you should be able to take good care of them if you keep them by your side. There's no need to keep them with me at all." Angel was very curious about what Chuan planned to do next. With Chuan's current strength, he could run amok in the same galaxy. Chuan had experienced danger with Lu Zi and Bayou, so it was a little strange that he still wanted to keep Lu Zi and Bayou with her. Chuan pursed his lips and said to Angel, "Maybe I'll leave the same galaxy and go to Tron Nebula." With Chuan's strength, he might be considered a powerhouse in the Sinai galaxy, but in the Tron Nebula, he was nothing. And now that he had the halo of a super genius, no matter where he went, he would attract a lot of attention. If he brought LVZ and Bayou with him, then when someone wanted to use LVZ and Bayou, his situation would become very difficult. Therefore, he didn't want to bring LVZ and Bayou with him without being able to resist all external risks. After hearing Chuan's answer, Angel's heart moved slightly. She asked, "Are you going to join the Tian people through your relationship with Tushan Ling?" Chuan looked at Angel and asked, "If I refuse Tushan Ling, how likely do you think the Tian people will let me go?" The entire celestial cluster respected the Tian people, but in Tron Nebula, the collateral branches of the Tian people were respected. Tushan Ling invited him to join the Tian people on behalf of the collateral branches of the Tian people. If he refused, it would mean that he didn't give face to the collateral branches of the Tian people, or even to the entire Tian people. This was not something that anyone could bear. After hearing Chuan's question, Angel pondered for a moment and then replied, "Based on my understanding of the Tian people, they are not overbearing. After you refuse them, they may not take any action against you, but in the future, your actions in Tron Nebula will be blocked and difficult." After hearing Angel's answer, Chuan understood that if he refused the collateral branches of the Tian people, he had to be mentally prepared to be rejected by the entire Tron Nebula. "I understand." Chuan took a deep breath and sighed. "Before I have the strength of the Dongshu stage, it's best not to go against the collateral branches of the Tian people, right?" Angel nodded and responded, "Although it's hard to accept, this is the reality, and you have to face it. Thank you for answering my questions today, Duke." Chuan looked at Angel gratefully. "After chatting with you for so long, I've benefited a lot." Angel smiled and said faintly, "In fact, we've talked for so long, but what I'm most interested in is the miracle you mentioned at the beginning. How likely do you think you are to become the child of miracles that you said yourself?" Child of Miracles. Hearing this title, Chuan could not help but feel a little familiar in his heart. When he was in the land of exile, he was once called the Child of Miracles, and he had repeatedly created miracles. Now, he did not expect that in a new world, someone would call him the Child of Miracles again. To be honest, I'm not interested in becoming the Child of Miracles. Chuan smiled and replied, "I relied on my own strength to get to where I am today, step by step, punch by punch. If there really is a miracle in this world, it shouldn't happen to me." Hearing Chuan's words, Angel looked at Chuan with a strange expression. She could not help but ask, "Can you really lie without blushing? If your experiences are not miracles, then what kind of person can be called the Child of Miracles?" Chuan grinned and replied, "I used to like this title, but now I want to be myself. Whoever wants to be the Child of Miracles can be it. Anyway, I don't like it." Chuan hoped that his future path would be smoother than creating miracles through thorns and thorns. However, things in this world often went against one's wishes. Chapter 878. After chatting with Angel, Qin Chuan left the office and returned to Lu Zi's dormitory. To his surprise, Lu Zi and Bai Yu weren't there. "We're going to cultivate. Don't look for us." Looking at the note left on the dormitory table, Qin Chuan's eyes couldn't help but flash with a hint of helplessness. He knew that today's matter had greatly stimulated these two girls, but he didn't expect that these two guys would actually ignite their fighting spirit so quickly and run off to cultivate. "That's good. I don't have to supervise them." Qin Chuan smiled, then turned and left the dormitory for the place Sophie had arranged for him. On his way there, the photon computer suddenly received a message from Tu Shanling. After reading the message, Qin Chuan couldn't help but have a subtle look on his face. It seems that the collateral family of the Tian people of Tron Nebula has already arrived at Heath City. Heath City, City Lord's Mansion. Tu Shanyu sat in the main seat, frowning as he looked at Tu Shanling, who was standing in front of him, and asked, "Qin Chuan isn't in Heath City?" Tu Shanling smiled bitterly and replied, "I sent someone to the Talisman Formation Master Guild to invite Qin Chuan as a guest, but Qin Chuan's wife, Zwisisi, told me that Qin Chuan has already left Heath City. He went where? To the Grand Duke's mansion in Rose City." Hearing Tu Shanling's words, Tu Shanyu snorted coldly and said, "As the City Lord of Caesar City, you didn't even know that Qin Chuan had left Caesar City? You've really disappointed the family." Tu Shanling hurriedly said, "I've already sent a message to Qin Chuan. If he sees it, he'll definitely reply. Qin Chuan has already gone to Dukyu Mansion in Rose City. This means that he is already tempted by the offer offered by Dukyu Mansion in Rose City. What kind of sincerity do you think we can offer to make him give up Dukyu Mansion in Rose City and join our Tushan family?" Hearing this, Tu Shanling immediately replied, "I've already sent someone to inquire about the relationship between Qin Chuan and the Grand Duke's mansion in Rose City. We'll definitely get a definite answer before tomorrow." Hearing this, Tu Shanyu nodded and said, "Do it as soon as possible. Qin Chuan is very important to our family. We can't afford to lose him." If Qin Chuan was just an ordinary super genius, Tushan family might not try so hard to recruit him. But Qin Chuan had mastered the Great Tao of Thunder, and he might be able to help other people cross the Tao of Thunder. To Tushan family, this was crucial. "I understand," Tu Shanling nodded. "I will contact Qin Chuan as soon as possible and show him our sincerity." Qin Chuan didn't reply to Tu Shanling immediately. He decided to leave Tu Shanling alone for a few days and then reply to him when the time was right. Presently, Qin Chuan had decided to slow down his cultivation for now and place emphasis on the Tao of talisman formations. He wanted to strive to break through to become a 5th grade Talisman Formation Master before the Talisman Formation Master Exchange began. Presently, there was only a month before the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and time was rather tight. Qin Chuan sat on the ground and took out the paper he used to analyze the astronomical formation in Zwisisi's study. He was ready to continue studying the astronomical formation. In fact, it wasn't that Qin Chuan wanted to study the astronomical formation. It was because the astronomical formation was the only level 5 rune matrix he had seen so far. The astronomical formation is a level 5 rune matrix that can attack and defend autonomously. Qin Chuan looked at the paper in his hand and recalled the diagram of the astronomical formation in his mind. After that, he began to try to inscribe the astronomical formation on the formation disk. However, Qin Chuan was slightly troubled about how to draw the first stroke. Sophie knocked on Qin Chuan's door just as he was thinking about all this. Qin Chuan stood up and went to open the door. He looked at Sophie, who was standing at the door, and asked curiously, "Is there something you need?" Sophie handed a thick notebook to Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "The Grand Duke knows that you will be participating in the Talisman Matrix Master Exchange in a month, so he specially instructed me to give this notebook to you. This is the notebook of our Rose City's level 5 Rune Matrix Master, Master Tianyin. It records some of Master Tianyin's research and understanding of level 5 rune matrices. Perhaps it will be helpful to you." Qin Chuan's face instantly revealed a pleasantly surprised expression when he heard this. He said to Sophie, "Thank you, Grand Duke. This is exactly what I need." Angel asked Sophie to deliver this notebook to Qin Chuan. To Qin Chuan, it could be said to be timely assistance. After receiving the notebook, Qin Chuan immediately couldn't wait to flip it open and read it. He only closed the notebook the next morning, feeling somewhat unsatisfied. So this is only a level 5 rune matrix. I still underestimated level 5 rune matrices. Qin Chuan sighed. He glanced at the research papers regarding the astronomical formation that he had previously written. He actually directly tore these papers into shreds and threw them into the trash can at the side. If he hadn't read Master Tian Yin's notebook and continued to research along the path that he had assumed, then it would be impossible for Qin Chuan to become a level 5 rune matrix master in this lifetime. After throwing away the papers, Qin Chuan once again held the formation disc and rune brush in his hands. However, this time, he didn't attempt to inscribe a level 5 rune matrix. Instead, he inscribed a level 4 high-grade rune matrix. This rune matrix was called the experimental rune matrix. That's right, it was the experimental rune matrix. This was a rune matrix that Master Tian Yin had created, and it was specially created for the purpose of researching level 5 rune matrices. This experimental rune matrix didn't possess any offensive or defensive capabilities. Its only characteristic was that it was similar to a level 5 rune matrix. In terms of the complexity and profoundness of the rune matrix, it was similar to a level 5 rune matrix. Simply speaking, if a rune matrix master could smoothly inscribe the experimental rune matrix, this meant that he possessed the foundation to attempt to inscribe a level 5 rune matrix. Furthermore, it would be much easier to research level 5 rune matrices on this foundation. The experimental rune matrix was a springboard. Qin Chuan's first attempt at inscribing the experimental rune matrix didn't go smoothly. When he put down the brush, he felt a little awkward. After many attempts, he finally discovered that the problem was with the rune brush in his hand. The rune brush in Qin Chuan's hand was the standard rune brush that Zhuo Lingling had given him. It had no problem inscribing level 4 rune matrices. However, if it was used to inscribe a level 5 rune matrix, then it would be somewhat inadequate. The output of spiritual power isn't smooth and natural enough. It's too jerky. Qin Chuan frowned as he looked at the standard rune brush in his hand. This was already the best rune brush he had on him. If he wanted a suitable rune brush now, then he would have to borrow one from the Grand Duke's residence. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, Sophie came again. The Grand Duke guessed that you would definitely want to try it after reading the notes. Therefore, he had me send this rune brush over, hoping that it would be of some help to you. Qin Chuan looked at the rune brush that Sophie handed over, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. Sophie saw the expression on Qin Chuan's face and added, "Also, the Grand Duke wanted me to tell you that he has no interest in monitoring a man." Qin Chuan. Chapter 879. While Qin Chuan was studying talisman arrays in the Grand Duke's mansion in Rose City, Tu Shanling was impatiently sending messages to Qin Chuan again and again, hoping that Qin Chuan could reply as soon as possible. Facing the indifferent and disappointed face of the messenger every day, he was really going crazy. As if God had heard Tu Shanling's prayer, on the 3rd day, Qin Chuan finally replied to the 14th message sent by Tu Shanling. "Sorry, I've been in closed-door training to study level 5 talisman arrays recently. I didn't check the optical computer in time and didn't reply in time." When he saw Qin Chuan's reply, Tu Shanling was overjoyed. He immediately started a video call with Qin Chuan. Soon, the video call was connected. When he saw Qin Chuan in disheveled clothes and a haggard face, Tu Shanling was slightly stunned. He couldn't help but ask, "Have you just finished your closed-door training?" Qin Chuan nodded and said to Tu Shanling, "I have indeed just finished my closed-door training. Studying level 5 talisman arrays day and night is really taxing on my brain cells. I have to take a good rest for a while. By the way, why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Tu Shanling first expressed his concern for Qin Chuan and asked Qin Chuan to take care of himself. Then he said to Qin Chuan, "I heard that you went to the Grand Duke's mansion in Rose City. Are you going to join the Grand Duke's mansion?" When he asked this question, Tu Shanling was very nervous. If Qin Chuan answered yes, he really didn't know how to persuade Qin Chuan. However, to Tu Shanling's surprise, Qin Chuan shook his head and replied, I came to the Grand Duke's residence in Rose City because I have friends here. I'm here to visit them. I'm not here to accept the Grand Duke's residence's invitation to join them. Hearing Qin Chuan's answer, Tu Shanling let out a long sigh of relief. Then he smiled and asked Qin Chuan, Brother Qin, when do you plan to come back? The emissary of our Tushan clan has already arrived at Heath City. He wishes to meet with you. Hearing Tu Shanling's words, Qin Chuan shook his head again and said to Tu Shanling, I'm sorry, I've recently obtained Master Tianing's notes and am currently studying level 5 charm arrays. I won't be returning to Heath City for a while, but I'll be going to Sinai City to participate in the Charm Array Master Exchange. After the exchange, I might return to Heath City. Hearing this, Tu Shanling frowned slightly. After pondering for a moment, he asked, Then why don't we meet in Sinai City? What do you think, Brother Qin? Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tu Shanling, Brother Ling, if you and the emissary of your family don't think it's too much trouble, that's not a problem at all. I can do whatever I want. Then I'll go find the emissary of my family and discuss with him. Tu Shanling looked at Qin Chuan. If I reply to you later, will I be unable to find you again? Qin Chuan smiled and said to Tu Shanling, Don't worry, that won't happen. Right now, I'm resting. I'll use my optical computer to look up some information. I'll be able to see your messages at any time. Hearing this, Tu Shanling let out a sigh of relief and replied with a smile, That's good. See you later. In the living room, Tu Shanyu frowned and looked at Tu Shanling, asking, You said that Qin Chuan won't be returning to Heath City for a while, and we have to go to Sinai City to meet him in person? And in 20 days? Do you know that my family is waiting for my reply? How do you want me to explain this to my family? Hearing this, Tu Shanling gave a bitter smile and said to Tu Shanyu, Lord Emissary, this is all my fault. I should take the responsibility. Speaking of this, Tu Shanling paused for a short while, then continued, However, right now, we're eagerly hoping that Qin Chuan can join our Tushan family. I think this is a good opportunity to show our Tushan family's grace. Lord Emissary, going to Sinai City to meet Qin Chuan in person will show that our Tushan family is treating him with respect. This will leave a good impression on Qin Chuan, which will be of great help to us in recruiting Qin Chuan. By then, if we can successfully recruit Qin Chuan into our Tushan family, Lord Emissary, you will have made a great contribution to our family. Hearing this, Tu Shanyu couldn't help but show a thoughtful look. Tu Shanling's words were reasonable. Although going to Sinai City would be a bit troublesome, at least it could show the grace of the Tushan family and leave a good impression on Qin Chuan, which could indeed increase the chances of recruiting Qin Chuan. You're right. Let's do it then. But this time, I hope there won't be any more mistakes. Tu Shanyu took a deep glance at Tu Shanling and said, If there are any more mistakes, even if our family succeeds in recruiting Qin Chuan, your contribution will be wiped out. Hearing this, Tu Shanling's face instantly turned serious as he responded, This time, I promise there won't be any more problems. Heath City, Talisman Formation Master Guild. Zhuo stood in front of the training room. Looking at the empty training room, she felt as if her heart had become empty. In the past 2 months, she had gotten used to coming back to her room to take a look at the training room after a day's work. Every time she saw that figure sitting in the training room, she would feel at ease and comfortable, but now, that figure had disappeared. Sister, what are you doing? Zhuo Lingling looked at Zhuo who was standing in front of the training room in a daze and couldn't help showing a helpless look. She knew that her sister was thinking of that person again and was starting to become infatuated. Zhuo Lingling had clearly said that this was a fake marriage, but she still fell for it. Zhuo Lingling didn't know what to say. She could only hope that as time passed, Zhuo could walk out of it as soon as possible. Hearing Zhuo Lingling's call, Zhuo turned around and looked at Zhuo Lingling. Pursing her lips, she said, I'm fine. I'm just looking around. Hearing this, Zhuo Lingling sighed and said to Zhuo He's been gone for several days. There's nothing to see. Hearing this, Zhuo expression changed slightly. She said in a low voice, "I know." Saying this, Swasisi walked towards the room. At this moment, her optical computer suddenly lit up and a special notification sounded at the same time. "Master, there's news from Qinchuan." Hearing this special notification sound, Swasisi and Zhuolingling were both stunned. But soon, Swasisi turned on her optical computer and looked at the news with a face full of surprise. Zhuolingling stood to the side and muttered with some jealousy, "Sister is too biased. She didn't set a special notification sound for me, but actually set a special notification sound for Qinchuan." Chapter 880. Sky Crane City. A black-robed figure stood in front of the battle armor repair shop, looking at the tightly shut shop with an extremely cold gaze. "Have you investigated the matter?" The cold voice sounded, and then a figure appeared from the darkness and respectfully replied, "Reporting to the Great Envoy, the matter has been investigated clearly. Duo Mei led her subordinates to Interstellar Portal 24 to carry out a mission, and since then, we have lost contact with them. I led people to investigate the situation near Interstellar Portal 24 and discovered 2 damaged flying ships, as well as the corpses of our people on them. According to this subordinate speculation, it is extremely likely that Duo Mei has met with a mishap." Hearing the subordinate's reply, the Great Envoy coldly snorted and asked, "What mission did they carry out? Why don't I know?" Reporting to the Great Envoy, "This matter is still under investigation and is not clear for the time being." Go investigate immediately. You must investigate clearly before we carry out our plan. This Great Envoy does not wish for any unexpected factors to interfere with our plan. This subordinate obeys. The subordinate's figure slowly disappeared into the darkness. The Great Envoy took one last deep look at the tightly shut shop before his figure also disappeared into the night. Time passed quickly like flowing water. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month had passed, and it was finally time for the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, which was held once every 50 years, to be held once again. During this time, Qinchuan had been in seclusion at the Grand Duke's estate in Rose City, studying the 5th grade of Talisman Formation Master. Unfortunately, he was unable to break through and become a 5th grade Talisman Formation Master. What a pity. If I had more time, I would definitely be able to become a 5th grade Talisman Formation Master. During this time, Qinchuan had been studying and experimenting with talisman formations. Finally, he was barely able to inscribe the experimental Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and he had the foundation to delve deeper into it. Unfortunately, there was not enough time. If he continued to study it, he might miss the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. "Qinchuan, are you ready?" Sophie stood at the door and looked at Qinchuan, who was in deep thought. She appeared much calmer than before. After spending this time together, she discovered that Qinchuan was actually a very easy person to talk to and was not as overbearing and domineering as she had imagined. Perhaps Qinchuan's overbearing and domineering attitude was only directed at enemies. "I'm ready." Qinchuan looked back at Sophie. "But before we leave, I want to say goodbye to little Z and the others." Sophie glanced at Qinchuan and said, "That won't be necessary. Before I came here, Lu Zi told me to tell you not to say goodbye to her when you leave, unless you want to take her with you." Hearing Sophie's words, Qinchuan was slightly taken aback. He couldn't help but reveal a helpless expression as he sighed. "All right then, let's set off." It wasn't just Qinchuan who was heading to Sinai City this time. Grand Duke Angel and the entire Iron Rose army were going as well. As the only Grand Duke of Sinai Galaxy, she had to participate in a grand event like the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. When Sophie led Qinchuan to the starport and boarded the spaceship, Angel was already sitting in the lounge area of the spaceship. When Qinchuan arrived at the lounge area and saw Angel, he smiled and greeted her. "Greetings, Grand Duke. We're all on the same side, so there's no need to be so formal." Angel smiled and asked Qinchuan, "Have you gained anything from studying Master Tianyin's notes recently?" Qinchuan sighed. "After reading Master Tianyin's notes, I really have the impulse to meet Master Tianyin in person. If it wasn't for Master Tianyin's notes, then I'm afraid it would be difficult for me to even get started. It's not an exaggeration to say that Master Tianyin can be considered half a teacher to me. This is all thanks to Grand Duke. If it wasn't for Grand Duke's help, I'm afraid I still wouldn't be able to find any clues. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Angel smiled and said to Qinchuan, Master Tianyin will be attending the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference as one of the judges. When the time comes, I'll introduce you to Master Tianyin at the right time. Qinchuan was pleasantly surprised when he heard this, and he hurriedly asked, Really? That's great. I have a lot of questions to ask Master Tianyin. Angel chuckled. I think Master Tianyin will like a student like you. Rose City's Grand Duke's Mansion. Lu Zi and Baiyu stood at the top floor together. They looked at the fleet that was slowly flying away from the starport and gradually disappearing into the universe with a slightly complicated expression. Their faces revealed a trace of disappointment. He's gone again. Lu Zi was a little sad. She bit her lip and said, I told him not to come and say goodbye, and he really didn't come. He's really a man of steel. Baiyu said in a low voice, I think he doesn't want to be separated. Of course I know, but we're too weak. We'll only be a burden by his side. Lu Zi sighed. You don't know how much despair and sadness I felt when I woke up and found out that Qinchuan had been sent away. At the time, I was willing to join the Night Spirit Guard training camp because I hoped that I could become strong one day and go back to find Qinchuan. But I didn't expect that our reunion would come so early. Qinchuan's improvement is so exaggerated that it's beyond my reach. I finally caught up to him with great difficulty, but he shook me off again. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Baiyu nodded lightly and said to Lu Zi, The reason I was willing to sacrifice myself to become the Hope's vessel soul was because I wanted to be by Qinchuan's side. Lu Zi looked at Baiyu with a subtle gaze and said, You're finally willing to spill your heart? You also like Qinchuan, right? I noticed a long time ago. So what if I like him? He only treats me as a friend, so I'll treat him as a friend. Becoming the vessel soul can completely cut off the distracting thoughts in my heart. Baiyu smiled. This is my mission as a blood elf, and also my wish. LVZ pursed her lips when she heard Baiyu and asked, Do you think he likes me? Baiyu smiled lightly and said to Lu Zi, I feel like you're showing off to me. If he didn't like you, I don't think he would have brought you to this new world. He's a responsible person and will be responsible for you until the end. Lu Zi shook her head and said in a low voice, I hope he'll be responsible for me because he likes me and not because of his sense of responsibility. These are two completely different things to me. Is the process really important? Baiyu looked at Lu Zi. The result is the most important. At least for now, the only person by his side is you. Chapter 881. Sane City was named after the Sane Galaxy because it was the capital of the royal family, and also because it was the most prosperous and largest city in the Sane Galaxy. Other cities only occupied the surface area of one planet, but Sane City occupied an entire planet and 4 satellites. When Qinchuan saw Sinai City from afar through the porthole, he was deeply shocked by the beauty of Sinai City. The extremely dreamy, super high-tech architectural style dazzled Qinchuan. It was too much for his eyes to take in. When the others saw Qinchuan's shocked and infatuated look, no one laughed at Qinchuan, because they had the same reaction when they first saw Sane City, or even worse. Sane City is the symbol and pride of the Sane Galaxy. All of us are proud of Sane City, Liao said. Angel walked slowly to Qinchuan's side and smiled at Qinchuan. What you see now is only the tip of the iceberg. When you go deeper into Sane City, you'll find that Sane City is far more wonderful than what you see. Even if you live in Sane City for the rest of your life, you will not be able to fully appreciate the beauty of Sane City, because Sane City is changing all the time. It is not static. Hearing Angel's words, Qinchuan smiled and said to Angel, Indeed, I will not be able to fully appreciate the beauty of Sane City, because I will not stay in Sane City for the rest of my life. Angel looked at Qinchuan with a subtle expression and whispered, I can see that you are a man with lofty ideals and ambitions. While Qin Chuan and Angel were talking, their fleet had arrived at the starport of Satellite Base Number 1. The spaceships of the Steel Rose Troop were not allowed to enter the main planet of Sane City, so they could only dock at the starport of the satellite base. After a simple inspection, Angel's spaceship was allowed to go straight to the main planet of Sane City. Qin Chuan looked at the strange spaceships outside the porthole, and a trace of doubt flashed through his eyes. This was because the spaceships he saw were all ordinary spaceships. There were no supreme-grade Dao artifacts like the Hope, and there weren't even any Dharma treasures. When Qin Chuan asked the question in his mind, Angel looked at Qin Chuan with a serious expression. I can tell you that if the Hope appears in the public eye, it will become a treasure that all forces will fight over. Even Dongshu stage experts may not be able to protect it. Angel looked at Qin Chuan seriously and said, I thought you didn't want to bring the Hope with you because you've realized how precious it is. Thankfully, you told me about it first. If anyone else knew about this, the consequences would have been dire. Qin Chuan nodded his head and said, You're right. I'm glad you told me about this. Qin Chuan's expression turned serious after hearing Angel's words. He said in a low voice, But many people in the Grand Duke's mansion seem to know about the Hope's existence. Will they leak it? Qin Chuan didn't pay much attention to this matter before, but now he had to treat it with caution. Angel smiled and said lightly, Don't worry about that. Other than those close to me, I've brainwashed everyone else. They've forgotten what happened in the arena that day, and they've forgotten about the Hope. Even if someone wants to restore their memory, it's impossible. Qin Chuan couldn't help but sigh in relief when he heard Angel's words. He said gratefully to Angel, Thank you, Grand Duke. I owe you another favor this time. Angel looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and said, The first time you owed me a favor was because of Lu Zi. This time, you owe me a favor because of the Hope, or rather, because of Bai Yu. It seems like the two of them are very important to you. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Angel, They're the most important people to me in this world. Angel smiled and said to Qin Chuan, I'll accept your favor. I hope that when I need your help in the future, you won't be unable to help me. Let's go. We're going to enter Sinai City. The spaceship slowly docked at the Rose City starport. Then everyone followed Angel out of the spaceship and set foot on Sinai City soil. Welcome, Grand Duke Angel. When the port staff saw Angel appear, they immediately saluted her respectfully to show their respect. You may all rise. Angel glanced at everyone indifferently, then ordered, Is the shuttle ready? It's ready. Would you like to go directly to the hotel or to the elegant house to meet the other Grand Dukes? Let's go directly to the elegant house. I'm a little tired today. We'll talk about the meeting tomorrow. Angel waved her hand casually. She was not very interested in meeting the other Grand Dukes. Under the arrangement of the staff, Qin Chuan and the others followed Angel onto the shuttle and flew directly to the hotel opened by Rose City in Sinai City. On the way to the hotel, Sophie whispered to Qin Chuan, The other Grand Dukes usually stay in the elegant house arranged by the royal family. Only Grand Duke Angel stays in the hotel opened by Rose City. Qin Chuan asked curiously, Why is that? Sophie glanced at Angel, who was sitting not far away, and whispered to Qin Chuan, Because Grand Duke Angel is the only female Grand Duke among all the Grand Dukes. She is the object of many Grand Dukes' pursuit. Grand Duke Angel is very disgusted with the other Grand Dukes, so she hates the elegant house. After hearing Sophie's explanation, Qin Chuan's eyes moved slightly, and he asked, Those Grand Dukes are trying to annex Rose City? Sophie nodded and said to Qin Chuan, That's right. Rose City is a piece of fat meat in the eyes of the other Grand Dukes. Whoever can marry Grand Duke Angel is equivalent to having Rose City in their hands. Qin Chuan was a little puzzled and asked, What does Rose City have that those Grand Dukes covet? Rose City has a total of 4 planets under its name, and all of them are made of fine gold. It's a main material for making spaceships, and it's a rare or resource in the Sinai star system. Sophie explained to Qin Chuan, Those Grand Dukes have been coveting these 4 planets for a long time. Qin Chuan continued to ask, So why are you telling me this? At the previous Talisman Formation Master Exchange, Each Grand Duke will bring a junior who has some achievements in the Talisman Formation Dao to participate in the competition. You are the junior chosen by Grand Duke Angel. Sophie said to Qin Chuan, I'm telling you this because I hope you can perform well at the Talisman Formation Master Exchange and not disappoint Grand Duke Angel. Chapter 882. Upon hearing Sophie's words, Qin Chuan was slightly startled. He said to Sophie, but I'm going to represent the Caesar City's Talisman Array Master Association in this Talisman Array Exchange. Engel had never mentioned this matter to him before, so he was completely unaware of the intricacies involved. Now that something like this had suddenly happened, what was he supposed to do? Sophie smiled upon hearing this. She said to Qin Chuan, you don't have to worry about this. You can continue to represent the Caesar City's Talisman Array Master Association in this Talisman Array Exchange, but you'll have the status of a junior of Grand Duke Engel. Do you understand? Qin Chuan came to a sudden realization. He said to Sophie, I understand. Then I don't have any more questions. But are you sure it'll be fine with my level? Don't worry. The Talisman Array Exchange stipulates that only Talisman Array Masters under the age of 100 can participate in the competition. There has never been a 5th-ranked Talisman Array Master under the age of 100 in the same galaxy. With your level as a 4th-ranked Talisman Array Master, you should be able to handle most situations. Sophie smiled, then asked curiously, speaking of which, how old are you this year? Qin Chuan pursed his lips slightly upon hearing this. He replied, 72 years old. Sophie exclaimed in surprise, what an enviable age. I thought you were at least over 90 years old. I didn't expect you to be so much younger than I imagined. There are really too few people who can achieve your level of accomplishment at this age. But I'm not an exception, right? Qin Chuan saw the surprised expression on Sophie's face. He felt some regret in his heart. If he had known earlier, he would have made his age a bit older. You're a super genius after all. It's normal for you to be a bit younger. Right, as a super genius that has only appeared in our sane galaxy for a few thousand years, you'll definitely receive a lot of attention in this Talisman Array Exchange. Remember to pay attention to your words and actions. You're currently representing Grand Duke Engel's face. Sophie warned Qin Chuan again. If you have any questions or don't understand anything, you must ask me immediately. I'll help you solve all your problems and troubles. Okay, I'll remember it. Qin Chuan smiled at Sophie. Although Sophie was a little talkative, she was still thinking about him, so he didn't feel annoyed. While Qin Chuan and Sophie were chatting, the flying shuttle finally arrived at the Rose Hotel. Sophie led Qin Chuan to the room that had been specially prepared for him and told him that he could also stay at the Rose Hotel after the representatives of Caesar City's Talisman Array Master Association arrived at Saint City. Qin Chuan thanked Sophie and turned to leave, while Qin Chuan returned to his room to contact with Cece and ask about the situation on their side. Buzz. Soon, the video call was connected, and Cece's face appeared in front of Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan. Cece couldn't help but feel excited when she saw Qin Chuan's face. She asked, You've already arrived at Saint City? Qin Chuan smiled and nodded. He replied, I've already arrived at Saint City. I'm currently staying at the Rose Hotel. You can stay here when you arrive. Cece asked in surprise when she heard Qin Chuan's words. You're going to Saint City with Grand Duke Engel? Yes. Qin Chuan replied, Grand Duke Engel and I have been getting along quite well during this period of time. It was also Grand Duke Engel who arranged for me to stay at the Rose Hotel. Cece glanced at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression and said, I've already booked a hotel in Saint City 3 years in advance. It's just the most ordinary hotel and can't be compared to the Rose Hotel at all. In the past, Cece thought that it was something to be proud of for her to be able to book a hotel in Saint City 3 years in advance during the Talisman Formation Exchange Conference. However, compared to Qin Chuan, her pride was just a joke. Seeing the subtle expression on Cece's face, Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Cece, Actually, I'm a person who adapts to circumstances. If you feel uncomfortable staying at the Rose Hotel, then we'll move to the hotel you booked when you arrive. Qin Chuan wasn't comforting Cece. He really wasn't picky about where to stay. Zwisisi shook her head and said, "Since there's a better hotel, there's no need for us to move out. Let me bask in your glory this time." Then it settled. Qin Chuan smiled. "See you in Sane City." After ending the call with Qin Chuan, Zwisisi put away her photon computer and raised her head to look at Tu Shanling, who sat before her. She asked, "May I know why the city lord is looking for me?" Tu Shanling chuckled and said to Zwisisi, "I didn't disturb your conversation with Qin Chuan by coming here, did I?" Zwisisi smiled and said to Tu Shanling, "We just had a simple conversation. You're worrying too much. Actually, I came to look for President Zhua today, because there's something I want to discuss with President Zhua." Tu Shanling gazed at Zwisisi with a subtle expression and asked, "President Zhua, you must really want to take back everything your Talisman Formation Master Association lost after your father went missing, right?" A wisp of a subtle expression couldn't help but flash through Zwisisi's eyes when she heard Tu Shanling, and she asked, "What do you mean by that? I don't really understand." "Since you don't understand, then I'll be straightforward. I want to make a deal with you. Once it's done, I'll fully support you in taking back those things that once belonged to your Talisman Formation Master Association. I can even help you ascend to the position of City Lord of Caesar City. As for whether you'll be able to sit firmly on the position of City Lord, that'll depend on your own ability." After hearing Tu Shanling's words, Zwisisi took a deep breath and asked, "The deal you mentioned should be related to Qin Creek, right? I guess you want me to help your Tushan clan recruit Qin Chuan, right?" Tu Shanling wasn't surprised that Zwisisi was able to guess his thoughts. He smiled and said to Zwisisi, "Although I don't know what the relationship between you and Qin Chuan is like, you're his wife after all. You definitely hope that he'll have a great future, right? You're aware of the status of our Tushan clan in Tron Nebula, so it's definitely the best choice for Qin Chuan to join our Tushan clan. In the future, he might even have the chance to enter the Celestial Cluster and become a direct descendant of the Tian people. But these are just the big picture you've painted." Zwisisi pursed her lips and said to Tu Shanling, "Although the deal you speak of is very tempting, I can't make the decision for Qin Chuan in this matter. It's his own business to choose which power he wants to join. I won't interfere, nor do I have the right to interfere. Sorry, I have other matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first." Chapter 883. Qin Chuan did not leave the hotel room for 2 consecutive days. He had been concentrating on his cultivation. That night, he was cultivating as usual. The little armored dragon that had been quietly sleeping on his Yao Dan suddenly trembled and woke up. Its pair of cute eyes looked towards the west in confusion, as if something in the west was attracting it. Qin Chuan immediately noticed the little armored dragon's awakening. He looked at the little armored dragon that was lying on the Yao Dan with a confused expression and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with you?" When the little armored dragon heard Qin Chuan's question, it raised its front legs and pointed towards the west in confusion. It called out softly twice, as if to tell Qin Chuan that something in the west was attracting it. After understanding the little armored dragon's meaning, Qin Chuan could not help but reveal a puzzled expression. What kind of existence in the west was attracting the little armored dragon? After pondering for a moment, Qin Chuan decided to go out and take a look. He wanted to figure out the situation as much as possible. Because the little armored dragon was related to Zerg, he had to be cautious. With that thought in mind, Qin Chuan no longer hesitated. He directly left the room and walked towards the west. He walked on the street and stopped in front of a tall building according to the little armored dragon's instructions. Anders Group. Qin Chuan looked at the nameplate on the building. He was puzzled. What kind of existence could attract the little armored dragon in this place? Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the little armored dragon suddenly issued a warning in his mind. It seemed like some kind of danger was approaching. Sensing the little armored dragon's nervousness and panic, Qin Chuan's expression changed slightly. His figure flashed and rushed towards the fork in the road not far away. Just as Qin Chuan rushed into the fork in the road and hid himself, a tall figure shrouded in a black robe suddenly appeared in front of the Anders Group's entrance. He looked around as if he was looking for something. Strange, Anders clearly sensed her companions nearby. So why did they suddenly disappear? As the tall figure spoke, he slowly raised his hand and opened his palm. In the center of his palm was a golden beetle that looked somewhat similar to the little armored dragon. It was lying there and seemed to be in a deep sleep. She fell asleep again? Was it really just Anders's imagination? The tall figure lowered his head and looked at the golden beetle named Anders in his palm. After a moment of silence, his figure flashed and disappeared. In the middle of the fork, Qin Xuan stood by the wall. His whole body was tense, and he didn't even dare to breathe. Just now, if his dodging speed was a little slower, once that tall figure discovered his existence, he would definitely die. This kind of premonition was very strong. Who was that person just now? He also has a king of sacred armor. Qin Xuan secretly glanced at that tall figure just now. He clearly saw that the tall figure also had a king of sacred armor similar to the little armored dragon in his palm. This meant that the tall figure was very likely to be a Zerg, and a holy master at that. In order to become a holy master in Zerg, other than having a king of sacred armor, one also needed to be at least at the Dongshu stage. Why is there a Zerg holy master here? And it seems like he's still hiding his whereabouts, as if he doesn't want anyone to know his identity. At this time, there were 10,000 question marks on Qin Xuan's head. He felt like he had spied on a great secret, but he didn't know what it was at the moment. In short, Qin Xuan never believed that Zerg was a good person. So this time, no matter what kind of plan Zerg had, if there was a chance to destroy it, he would not hold back. Qin Xuan stood in the corner without moving. It was not until 2 hours later that he dared to move and quickly returned to the Rose Hotel. The next morning, Qin Xuan went to the starport to welcome Zhuo and the others who had come from afar. This time, there was no one else from the Caesar City's Talisman Formation Master Association who had come to participate in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference, except for Zhuo and Zhuo. It wasn't that other people didn't want to come, but that the hotels in Sane City were basically full at this time, so there was no way to book a room. Zhuo had booked a room 3 years in advance in order to book a room. If she had known that the reservation wouldn't come in handy, perhaps she would have brought 2 more people with her. Zhuo saw Qin Xuan as soon as she walked out of the spaceship. She tried to control her emotions, smiled, and waved at Qin Xuan. Just as she was about to go up and talk to Qin Xuan, Tu Shanling, who was with her, rushed to Qin Xuan's side and gave Qin Xuan a big hug. "Brother Qin, it really isn't easy to see you." Tu Shanling was speaking from the bottom of his heart. It really wasn't easy for him to see Qin Xuan. Faced with the enthusiastic Tu Shanling, Qin Xuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Those who didn't know would think that the two of them had a very good relationship. "Brother Ling, let's not hug each other for so long. My wife is still watching from the side." Qin Xuan coughed lightly and used Zhuo as a shield. This was the first time he had called Zhuo his wife in front of outsiders, so he wasn't used to it for a while. Hearing this, Tu Shanling laughed and immediately let go of Qin Xuan. He said, "It's my fault. I should have let sister-in-law and brother Qin reunite first." While speaking, Tu Shanling took a step back, leaving space for Qin Xuan and Zhuo. Compared to Tu Shanling's enthusiasm, Zhuo was much more shy. She didn't want to hug Qin Xuan. Qin Xuan didn't care about it. He chuckled and said to Zhuo, "Long time no see. You've lost weight." Zhuo glanced at Qin Xuan with a complicated look. She said, "You too. All right, let's not talk about this. Let's go. I'll take you to the hotel." Qin Xuan smiled and turned to look at Tu Shanling. As he was about to talk, he found that a man had appeared beside Tu Shanling. Tu Shanling seemed to be very respectful to this man. Seeing this, Qin Xuan was slightly surprised. He asked Tu Shanling, "Who is this?" Hearing Qin Xuan's question, Tu Shanling immediately introduced, "Let me introduce you. This is the 7th elder of the Tu Shan family in Tron Nebula. His name is Tu Shanyu. You can call him Uncle Yu." Qin Xuan immediately clasped his hands to Tu Shanyu and shouted, "Greetings, Uncle Yu." "Haha, I've heard that Qin Xuan is a super genius for a long time. Now that I've met you, you do live up to your reputation." Tu Shanyu looked at Qin Xuan kindly with a smile on his face. He really looked like an elder, not as cold and indifferent as when he was alone with Tu Shanling. Chapter 884. We're all on the same side, so don't be so restrained. I heard from my sister-in-law that Brother Chin is staying at the Rose Hotel. We happen to be staying at the Rayleigh Hotel opposite the Rose Hotel, so we could be considered neighbors. Why don't we travel together? Tu Shanling chuckled and livened up the atmosphere. Qinchuan naturally had no objection to Tu Shanling's suggestion. It just so happened that he also wanted to take this opportunity to test the Tu Shan clan's attitude towards him. Let's go. They boarded the flying shuttle that Qinchuan borrowed from the Rose Hotel and slowly headed towards the hotel. Inside the flying shuttle, Tu Shanling sat opposite Qinchuan and said to Qinchuan, "Brother Qin, you came to Sane City with Grand Duke Angel this time. I presume that apart from representing the Sid City's Talisman Formation Master Association to participate in this Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference, you also want to represent Grand Duke Angel in a competition with the other Grand Dukes Juniors, right?" Although Tu Shanling hadn't experienced some of the things that happened at the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference, he knew a lot about it. Therefore, he easily found a topic to talk about and began to chat with Qinchuan. Qinchuan nodded and said to Tu Shanling, "Brother Ling is right. This time, I'm indeed going to participate in the competition with the other Grand Dukes as Grand Duke Angels Jr. After all, I owe Grand Duke Angel a favor, so I have to help him." The favor Qinchuan was referring to Angel's care towards Lu Zi and Baiyu. However, Tu Shanling thought that Qinchuan was willing to help Angel because of Master Tiannin's notes. He chuckled and said to Qinchuan, "Actually, many of our Tu Shan clan's friends are 5th-level Talisman Formation Masters. If I had known that Brother Qin would need the notes of a 5th-level Talisman Formation Master for study and reference, I would have borrowed them for you long ago." Hearing Tu Shanling's words, Tu Shanyu suddenly took out an ancient notebook from his storage ring and casually handed it to Qinchuan, saying blandly, "As your elder, I don't have anything to give you for the first time. This notebook was written by Master Ele, a 5th-level Talisman Formation Master from Tron Nebula. I'll give it to you as a gift for our first meeting. You can combine these 2 notebooks and study them together. I'm sure you'll gain something." Qinchuan looked at the notebook Tu Shanyu handed to him and was stunned. He didn't expect Tu Shanyu to give him such a precious gift for the first time they met. This really surprised him. Zhua Sisi and Zhua Lingling, who were sitting aside, looked at the notebook Tu Shanyu handed to Qinchuan. A 5th-level Talisman Formation Master's notebook was fatally attractive to a 4th-level Talisman Formation Master. The 2 of them could achieve what they had today because their father left them a notebook before he disappeared. Although there weren't many things recorded in the notebook, it was enough for them to enjoy for the rest of their lives. "Brother Qin, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and take it." Tu Shanling chuckled at Qinchuan, reminding Qinchuan to hurry up and take it. To be honest, he didn't expect Tu Shanyu to be so generous as to give such a precious notebook to Qinchuan on their first meeting. Qinchuan immediately came back to his senses after Tu Shanling's reminder. He hurriedly took the notebook with both hands and said gratefully to Tu Shanyu, "Uncle Yu, thank you for your gift. I'm really so excited that I don't know what to say." Tu Shanyu chuckled and said calmly, "It's just a small gift. Don't take it to heart." Although Qinchuan really wanted to open the notebook and read it on the spot, he restrained himself in the end and put it away. He was going to read it when he got back. At this moment, Tu Shanling had already shifted the topic to the opening ceremony of the Talisman Matrix Exchange Conference. It was said that more than 100 Talisman Matrix Masters participating in the conference would jointly engrave the Talisman Matrix they were best at on the Exchange Square. The light of the Talisman Matrix would illuminate the sky of Sinai City. This scene at the opening ceremony was extremely spectacular and would be the topic of conversation for a long time after dinner. While they were chatting, the shuttle arrived at its destination and stopped in front of the Rayleigh Hotel. Tu Shanling and Tu Shanyu immediately stood up and walked outside. After agreeing to have dinner with Qinchuan, they entered the hotel while Qinchuan and the other 2 returned to the Rose Hotel. Chuan brought Zwisisi and Zwilingling to their room. After settling them down, he couldn't wait to return to his room. He took out the notebook Tushan you gave him and began to read it carefully. Before he knew it, 2 hours had passed. When the alarm rang, Chuan finally moved his gaze away from the notebook, as if he had not had enough. He sighed and said, "Compared to these level 5 talisman formation masters, I'm really too inferior." The more he understood level 5 talisman matrices, the more clearly Chuan realized his shortcomings. This was a good thing for Chuan, as it was beneficial for his growth. Master Tianyin and Master AI Li's notes are different. Master Tianyin focuses on engraving level 5 talisman matrices, while Master AI Li focuses on talisman matrices. Chuan looked at the 2 notebooks in his hands and murmured, "In the exiled land, talisman matrices are divided into heaven, earth, black, and yellow levels. Engraving level 4 talisman matrices requires heaven talisman matrices, while level 5 talisman matrices requires Dao matrices." Chuan learned about Dao matrices from Master AI Li's notes. Heaven, earth, black, and yellow levels of talisman matrices could be artificially created, but Dao matrices were naturally nurtured by heaven and earth. They were even more mysterious and profound, and were the core of level 5 talisman matrices. Master AI Li didn't record Dao matrices in his notes because Dao matrices couldn't be recorded. Back then, when I was unconsciously studying the astronomical formation, the reason why I triggered the killing intent of the astronomical formation was because I wanted to record Dao runes on paper. Now, Chuan finally understood why he had almost triggered the killing intent of the astronomical formation back then. It was because he had unintentionally detected the location of the core Dao rune of the astronomical formation. Chuan couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. Why didn't anyone remind him of the existence of Dao matrices? If he knew that Dao matrices were required for engraving level 5 talisman matrices, he wouldn't have wasted so much time. It was useless if he couldn't learn Dao matrices even after studying for so long. However, Chuan felt that something wasn't right. If Dao matrices were required for engraving level 5 talisman matrices, then why did Zwisisi hope that he could become a level 5 talisman matrices master in such a short time? As an outsider, he didn't know about Dao matrices, but as a local, Zwisisi should know about it. Chapter 885. With a heart full of questions, Chuan couldn't wait to find Zwisisi and ask her his questions. When she heard Chuan's question, Zwisisi couldn't help but be stunned. "Why are you asking me this kind of question?" Zwisisi looked at Chuan with a puzzled gaze. "Don't tell me you don't know anything about this." Chuan was slightly startled when he heard this, and he asked in reply, "Should I know?" Seeing Chuan's confused expression, Zwisisi smiled helplessly and said to Chuan, "This is basic knowledge that all talisman formation masters should know. I originally thought that you already knew, but I didn't expect that you didn't know anything at all. Today, let me explain it to you, so that when the time comes, you won't be seen through and lose face at the talisman formation master exchange." Hearing Zwisisi's words, Chuan's expression instantly became extremely awkward. He really didn't expect that the blind spot he encountered this time would actually be basic knowledge. This couldn't be blamed on him. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame the library of Caesar City's Talisman Formation Master Association for not having enough detailed records regarding this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made such a fool of himself. While Chuan was consoling himself, Zwisisi also began to explain to Chuan the basic knowledge regarding Dao glyphs. She seriously said to Chuan, "Talisman formations are divided into battle formations and auxiliary formations. I think you should know this. Similarly, we talisman formation masters are also divided into auxiliary formation masters and battle formation masters. As an auxiliary formation master, it's relatively easy to become a 5th talisman formation master. As a battle formation master, if you want to become a 5th talisman formation master and master a 5th rank battle formation master, then you must master at least one Tao glyphs. If you want to inscribe a 5th-rank Talisman Formation Master, you must use Tao glyphs. After hearings with Cece's explanation, Qin Chuan couldn't help but show a look of realization on his face. He exclaimed, "It turns out that Tao runes target battle formations, not all talisman formations." Cece nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "Most of the grade 5 Talisman Formation Masters that we usually talk about are auxiliary Talisman Formation Masters. Perhaps only 1 out of 1,000 grade 5 auxiliary Talisman Formation Masters is a grade 5 Battle Formation Master. Moreover, this Battle Formation Master may only know one grade 5 Battle Formation Master." Qin Chuan was a little surprised when he heard this. Could the reason why there are so few Battle Formation Masters is because Tao runes are very difficult to grasp? Cece nodded and explained to Qin Chuan. Firstly, Tao runes cannot be recorded. If you want to comprehend Tao runes, you have to find a Tao rune in the vast universe to comprehend. After you comprehend a Tao rune, you have to find a LV5 battle formation that is compatible with this Tao rune. Only then will you have the opportunity to learn a LV5 battle formation and become an LV5 battle formation master. This is too difficult. Hearings with Cece's explanation, Qin Chuan couldn't help but gasp. The conditions to become a LV5 battle formation master were too harsh. Cece smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "It is indeed very difficult to become an LV5 battle formation master. However, once you become an LV5 battle formation master, you can run amok in the world. Even some of the powerful forces in the nebula will not dare to provoke you easily." Hearing this, Qin Chuan asked curiously, "There must be a lot of Tao runes in the universe, right?" Cece chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "There are indeed a lot of Tao runes in the universe. However, each Tao rune is in the hands of those powerful forces. It is basically impossible for ordinary people to comprehend Tao runes." "Does the Tushan family have Tao runes in their hands?" Qin Chuan's eyes flickered as he said in a low voice, "I think I understand why Tushan you gave me this notebook." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Cece paused for a moment. Then, she understood what Qin Chuan meant. Her face revealed a trace of astonishment as she said involuntarily, "Could it be that you suddenly came here to ask me about Tao runes because you read Tushan Yu's notebook?" Qin Chuan nodded and said to Cece, "The notebook Tushan you gave me recorded some explanations about runes and Tao runes. At that time, I didn't think too much about it. However, after hearing what you said, I guess that Tushan Yu was kind enough to give me a notebook of LV5 Talisman Formation Master. He must want to use the records about Tao runes to attract me to join the Tushan family." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Cece took a deep breath and said, "You're right. The Tushan family does have a Tao rune." After receiving Cece's confirmation, a subtle light flashed across Qin Chuan's eyes as he asked, "Do they have an LV5 talisman formation that is compatible with Tao runes?" Cece said to Qin Chuan with a serious tone, "I don't know about that. However, I can be sure that there are 3 Tao runes in Tron Nebula. One of them is completely controlled by the Tushan family. The other 2 Tao runes seem to be shared with other forces." Cece paused for a moment, then asked Qin Chuan, "Are you tempted?" Qin Chuan glanced at Cece, then pursed his lips and said, "Do you think I should be tempted?" Hearing Qin Chuan's question, Cece knew that Qin Chuan must be tempted. She sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "With your talent, you would never be willing to be an ordinary assistant formation master. You must want to comprehend Tao runes. Based on the current situation, if you want to comprehend Tao runes, you can't avoid the Tushan family. Therefore, you have to join them." Qin Chuan remained silent for a while, then asked Cece, "Do you think it's possible for me to cooperate with the Tushan family?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Cece paused for a moment. After quite a while, she asked Qin Chuan, "Why do you think you can cooperate with the Tushan family? Don't you know how powerful the Tushan family is in Tron Nebula? They only want you to join them and become one of them. They will never allow you to wander outside of their control." Hearing Cece's words, Qin Chuan remained silent for a long time. After a while, he said, "The Tushan family is so eager to recruit me. They must have some ulterior motives. What do you think I have that is worth their attention? I don't think talent is the most important thing." Although there weren't many super geniuses in the sane galaxy who had passed the 9 heavenly tribulations, there were still many in Tron Nebula. The Tushan family wouldn't treat Qinchuan favorably just because of this. They must have some ulterior motives. Zhuo frowned slightly. After a moment of consideration, she shook her head and said, "I can't think of anything. We must have overlooked something." Qinchuan closed his eyes and said to Zhuo, "Tell me about how Tushan Ling appeared and observed my tribulation. Don't miss any details." Chapter 886. What do we miss? Hearing Qinchuan's words, Zhuo couldn't help showing a trace of confusion on her face. After a short moment of recollection, she began to narrate what happened when Qinchuan was facing the heavenly tribulation. When Tushan Ling first showed up, he behaved normally. He was proud and cold as usual. Later, when he saw that you were safe and sound after the heavenly tribulation, he was a little surprised. He asked why you were safe and sound. At that time, Sheila provoked me. Then, I told him that you had mastered the law of thunder, and then... Speaking of this, Zhuo abruptly stopped. Qinchuan's eyes shone as well. They both discovered the problem almost at the same time. The law of thunder. Qinchuan took a deep glance at Zhuo and asked, "Are you sure that Tushan Ling's attitude changed after you told him that I had mastered the law of thunder?" Zhuo nodded and said to Qinchuan, "I'm sure that Tushan Ling's expression changed after that, and he became warmer to me." Zhuo paused for a short while, then continued confusedly. "According to our speculations, Tushan family values the law of thunder that you have mastered. Although the law of thunder is rare, it shouldn't be enough for Tushan family to recruit you like this, right?" Qinchuan shook his head, pursed his lips, and said, "You're wrong. Indeed, Tushan family values the law of thunder that I have mastered, but not because of the law of thunder itself. Instead, it's because of another ability that the law of thunder brings me." Zhuo was slightly stunned when she heard this, and then she seemed to have thought of something. A wisp of astonishment couldn't help but appear in her eyes as she cried out involuntarily. "Could it be that the Tushan clan values your ability to resist the lightning tribulation?" Qinchuan nodded with a slightly serious look, then said to Zhuo, "I think that's what they value the most. Perhaps they want to use me to help someone pass the heavenly tribulation." Thinking of this, Qinchuan's face darkened. If Tushan family truly wanted to take advantage of him, he would be used as a lightning rod by Tushan family. Thinking that he was seen as a tool by Tushan family people, Qinchuan had a bad mood. He hated this feeling so much. "Qinchuan, if Tushan family truly wants to take advantage of you, they will never let you go. They are nice to you now, but they might not be nice to you when you refuse them." Zhuo face was filled with worry. She knew these big forces too well. They would rather destroy something they couldn't get than give it up. Qinchuan took a deep breath and said to Zhuo, "I know what you mean, and I know you're right. I have no other choice but to join Tushan family and pretend to be nice to them." With Qinchuan's current strength, he could roam freely in the sane galaxy, but if he were to fight against the Tushan family, his strength would be nothing. Fighting against the Tushan family right now was like throwing an egg against a rock. A mantis tried to stop a chariot. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Zhuo face darkened. Just as Qinchuan said, Qinchuan's current strength was not enough to fight against the Shan family. Even if he left Tron Nebula, as long as he didn't leave the celestial cluster, he would be restrained by Tushan family everywhere. By then, it would be too late for him to bow his head. After understanding his current situation, Qinchuan let out a long sigh and said helplessly, "Strength, after all? It's because I'm too weak." This was a fact that made Qinchuan feel helpless. If he was strong enough, he wouldn't have to worry about this matter today. The reason why Tushan family could be so unscrupulous was that they were strong enough. In the face of absolute strength, all tricks were useless. "What are you going to do?" Zhuang looked at Qin Chuan, her face full of worry. Now, I can only take one step at a time. Since I have no other choice, I can only hope that Tushan family can treat me better. Qin Chuan smiled bitterly. This matter made him feel like he had returned to the center of the heirs of Kunlun. Facing the oppression and humiliation of the strong, he was so powerless. Seeing the helpless look on Qin Chuan's face, Zhuang pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "Sorry, I'm partly responsible for this matter. How can I blame you? The fact that I have mastered the law of thunder will be known sooner or later. It can't be hidden at all." Qin Chuan looked at Zhuang. "Don't think too much. When the time comes, everything will be fine. Since Tushan family hasn't used force on me now, it means there's still room for negotiation." Hearing this, Zhuang smiled bitterly and said, "If only I could be as optimistic as you. Okay, let's not talk today. Have a good rest." Qin Chuan stood up and said to Zhuang, "I have other things to do, so I'll leave first." After saying goodbye to Zhuang, Qin Chuan went straight to Angel. There were some things he had to understand clearly, otherwise he would feel very uneasy. Angel was not surprised by Qin Chuan's visit. Instead, she felt that it was natural. "I heard that you came back with the Tushan family in the same shuttle. It seems that you encountered something with the Tushan family, so you have some questions to ask me, right?" Angel said Qin Chuan's thoughts as soon as she saw Qin Chuan. She seemed to have seen through everything and was calm and collected. Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and said to Angel, "Grand Duke, I do have some things to ask of you. How much do you know about Grand Duke Dawen?" When she heard Qin Chuan's question, Angel smiled and replied, "Dawen is born from the world. It can't be copied or moved. Once it appears, it will definitely cause a storm of blood. It might even cause the top 10 clans to take action. This is the main reason why Talisman Formation Masters are willing to join the various forces." Qin Chuan asked, "How many Dawen does the Tushan family have?" Angel answered without hesitation, "The Tushan family has 1 Dawen completely, and they share 2 Dawen with other forces. Every year, the Tushan family can send 10 Talisman Formation Masters to the place where the shared Dawen is to study it for a month. As for the Dawen that the Tushan family has, only Talisman Formation Masters who have made great contributions to the Tushan family can study it." Before Qin Chuan asked again, Angel continued, "Of the 2 shared Dawen, one is of the wind attribute, and the other is of the wood attribute. As for the Dawen that the Tushan family has, I don't know. It's a secret that not many people in Tron Nebula know." Chapter 887. Qin Chuan frowned slightly when he heard Angel, and then he asked, "Besides the Talisman Formation Masters that have joined the Tushan clan, could it be that the other Talisman Formation Masters aren't able to comprehend the Tao markings?" Angel smiled lightly when she heard this, and then she said to Qin Chuan, "Why do you think we're holding the Talisman Formation Master Exchange?" Qin Chuan was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he asked with slight surprise, "Could it be that holding the Talisman Formation Master Exchange is related to the comprehension of the Tao markings?" Angel nodded and replied, "Exactly. It isn't just our sane galaxy that's holding the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. The other galaxies will hold the Talisman Formation Master Exchange as well. All the Talisman Formation Masters that are able to enter the top 3 of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange will obtain a spot to comprehend the Tao markings, and the time limit will similarly be 1 month." Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a wisp of pleasant surprise when he heard Angel's explanation, and he asked hurriedly, "In this way, I can comprehend the Tao markings so long as I'm able to enter the top 3 of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange." Angel laughed lightly when she saw the pleasant surprise on Qin Chuan's face. "Firstly, all the geniuses in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange will converge. Even though I look favorably upon you, it's still difficult for you to enter the top 3. Secondly, the Tao markings are profound and profound. Not to mention a month of time, you might not be able to comprehend it even if you were given a year of time. These rewards seem to be generous, yet it's actually only bait used by the various powers to attract geniuses." Qin Chuan was slightly stunned when he heard this, and then he understood the crux of the matter and said with slight surprise, in other words, the Talisman Formation Master Exchange is actually a selection of genius Talisman Formation Masters from the various powers. You can say that. Angel nodded. All the Talisman Formation Masters that are able to participate in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange are geniuses below the age of 100, and practically all of them are high-grade Grade 4 Talisman Formation Masters. Which one of them isn't proud and arrogant? They feel that they're extraordinary and can become a 1-in-a-million battle formation master. If they were given a chance to comprehend the Tao markings, yet it's only a short period of a month, do you think they would be willing? What could they do if they were unwilling, besides joining the various powers to obtain even more time to comprehend the Tao markings? When he heard Angel finish speaking, Qin Chuan couldn't help but take a deep breath, and then he said in a low voice, in this way, the Talisman Formation Master Exchange is a trap set up by the various powers for the genius Talisman Formation Masters. Moreover, it's a trap that one has no choice but to jump into. Angel smiled and replied, if you don't wish to become a 1-in-a-million battle formation master, and if you have the confidence to comprehend the Tao runes within a month, then you can choose not to jump. After a long silence, Qin Chuan asked, what's the record for the shortest time to comprehend Tao runes? Angel couldn't help but reveal a wisp of surprise when she heard Qin Chuan's question. She glanced at Qin Chuan with deep meaning in her eyes, and then she answered, 7 years. Not 7 years of comprehending Tao runes every year, but 7 years of continuous study. When he heard Angel's answer, Qin Chuan's expression couldn't help but become slightly unsightly. He was very confident in his natural talent in the Tao of talisman formations, but it was still a bit too whimsical for him to compress 7 years into a month. When she saw Qin Chuan's expression become extremely unsightly, Angel seemed to feel that this wasn't enough, and she continued, this person who used 7 years to comprehend the Tao runes is the youngest elder in the history of the Tushan clan. He's only 109 years old now, and he started comprehending the Tao runes when he was 100 years old. 2 years ago, he broke the record for the shortest time to comprehend the Tao runes at that time, 19 years old. He used 7 years to comprehend the Tao runes and successfully broke through to become a 5th-rank battle formation master. He became the youngest 5th-rank battle formation master in the history of Tron Nebula and the youngest elder of the Tushan clan in one fell swoop. Hearing Angel's words, Qin Chuan's expression couldn't help but become even more unsightly, because this person's identity was way too special. A genius of the Tushan family would certainly receive the best cultivation and would be provided with endless resources. Not to mention anything else, the fact that he could comprehend the Tao runes for 7 years in a row was already a privilege that not everyone could have. Angel smiled and said to Qin Chuan, I think you've already thought about it. A genius who was fully cultivated by the entire Tushan family spent 7 whole years to comprehend the Tao runes. How do you think you can compete with him with your current condition? Do you think you're 100 times more talented than him? Angel didn't mean to hurt Qin Chuan's confidence. Instead, she had to make some things clear to Qin Chuan, in case Qin Chuan had some unrealistic fantasies. If that happened, it would be too late for him to change his mind. In terms of talent, I'm still a bit confident. Out of Angel's expectation, Qin Chuan actually said something that sounded extremely confident, and even a bit arrogant in Angel's eyes. In Angel's eyes, Qin Chuan was indeed a bit arrogant, but Qin Chuan knew himself well. That genius of the Tushan family attained the Tao runes at the age of 107 and became a level 5 battle formation master, while Qin Chuan was only 27 years old now. The difference between him and that genius wasn't in talent, but in background. Angel cast a complicated glance at Qin Chuan and asked, Are you really confident? Qin Chuan looked at Angel in a complicated way and responded, If I wasn't confident, I wouldn't have said that. Clap, clap, clap. Angel applauded Qin Chuan's response and said with a smile, Indeed, after all, you're only 72 years old this year. You're nearly 30 years younger than Tushan Jun back then. You do have the right to say that. Angel paused for a moment and continued. But no matter what, there's a difference in background between you and Tushan Jun. If you want to comprehend the Tao runes, you definitely can't avoid the Tushan family. Hearing this, Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a bitter expression. He said helplessly, "That's true." At this point, Qinchuan lost interest in continuing the conversation. He said to Angel, "Thank you for answering my question, Grand Duke. Goodbye." Seeing that Qinchuan was about to leave, Angel asked, "Have you made your decision?" Qinchuan cast a deep glance at Angel when he heard this, and then he pursed his lips and said, "Even though the price of Tao runes is high, freedom is more precious." Even though the Tushan family basically grasped the Tao runes of the entire Tron Nebula, Qinchuan didn't have no chance to comprehend the Tao runes. Moreover, his chance was at the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. During that 1 month, he had sufficient confidence in his own natural talent. After Qinchuan left, Angel sat on the sofa for a long time and pondered over the last words that Qinchuan had said before he left. Even though the price of Tao runes is high, freedom is more precious. This was the unwilling roar of an outstanding young man towards the rules of the game in this world. I really want to see what kind of storm you can raise in this world. Will you yield to reality or press forward courageously? Chapter 888. In the evening, as promised, Qinchuan and Zhuosisi arrived at a restaurant near the Rose Hotel. They met Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu at the door. Qinchuan acted as if nothing had happened, warmly greeting Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu. "Nice to meet you, Uncle Yu, Brother Ling." Looking at Qinchuan's smiling face, Tushan Ling chuckled as well, teasing him. "I thought Brother Qin would study Master AI Li's notes so hard that you would forget our dinner date." Hearing Tushan Ling's words, Qinchuan smiled calmly. "Although I do want to study Master AI Li's notes, unfortunately, I haven't studied Master Tian Yin's notes thoroughly. I don't have time to read Master AI Li's notes for now." Zhuosisi's expression remained the same, but she was secretly observing Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu's expressions. As she and Qinchuan expected, Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu's expressions changed when they learned that Qinchuan hadn't read Master AI Li's notes. Hearing this, Tushan Ling's expression changed slightly, asking, "We didn't even flip through the notes casually?" Hearing this, Qinchuan said with a serious expression, "Master AI Lu is a 5th grade talisman array master and my senior. How can I casually flip through his notes? I have to read and study them when I'm at my peak." Standing behind Qinchuan, Zhuosisi almost burst out laughing when she heard Qinchuan talking nonsense with such a serious face. Why didn't she realize that Qinchuan was such a good talker before? The expressions on Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu's faces were simply too wonderful. Before Tushan Ling asked anything else, Qinchuan continued, "I wanted to take a look at Master AI Li's notes as well, but I was worried that I would be too engrossed in it and miss tonight's dinner date. Secondly, I haven't studied Master Tian Yin's notes thoroughly. If I start studying Master AI Li's notes right away, I'm afraid I'll bite off more than I can chew. We have to walk step by step." Hearing Qinchuan's reasonable explanation, Tushan Ling's mouth twitched fiercely. He didn't know what to say. Beside him, Tushan Yu couldn't help but say to Qinchuan, "Actually, Master AI Li's notes aren't as complicated as you think. You can take a simple look at them first." Qinchuan smiled bitterly and said helplessly, "I also wanted to take a look at Master AI Li's notes, but Grand Duke Angel told me that he would recommend me to Master Tianyin soon. If Master Tianyin asks me questions about the notes, and I can't answer them, not only would I fail to live up to Grand Duke Angel's good intentions, but I would also miss a chance to communicate with a level 5 Talisman Formation Master. Therefore, I have to study Master Tianyin's notes wholeheartedly during this period of time." After hearing Qinchuan's reasonable explanation, Tushan Yu was so depressed that he almost spat out blood. He had carefully designed such a trap to make Qinchuan step into it unknowingly. Who would have thought that Qinchuan was flirting with a blind man? All his efforts were in vain. Hearing Qinchuan's answer, Tushan Yu forced a smile and said to Qin Chuan, "It's good that you're aware of this. I wonder when Grand Duke Angel will recommend you to Master Tianyin?" Qin Chuan chuckled and answered, "Right after the Talisman Formation Master Conference." Qin Chuan and Zhuo enjoyed the banquet very much, but Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu tasted like they were chewing wax. Nothing tasted good to them. When the banquet was finally over, Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu bid farewell to Qin Chuan and hurried back to the hotel. Once they entered the hotel, Tushan Yu's face darkened as he said coldly, "Our plan failed." Hearing this, Tushan Ling gave a bitter smile and said helplessly, "I didn't think that Qin Chuan didn't read Master Li's notes either. I'm afraid our plan to attract him with Dao inscriptions has failed." Tushan Yu came up with this plan before he came to Sinai City. He purposely made this plan to arouse Qin Chuan's curiosity about Dao inscriptions with the notes on Dao inscriptions in Master Li's notes. Then, he would use the Dao inscriptions in Master Li's notes to recruit Qin Chuan into Tushan family. However, this plan failed at the very first step. Qin Chuan didn't follow the plan at all. Tushan Yu slowly turned around, looked at Tushan Ling, and asked, "Do you think Qin Chuan truly didn't read the notes? Or is he playing dumb with us?" Hearing this, Tushan Ling frowned slightly and said hesitantly, "I don't think he has a reason to play dumb with us. Does he?" "I don't think so either. But I don't believe that he can really resist reading Master Li's notes." Tushan Yu frowned as well. "There must be something wrong. Elder 7, aren't you thinking too much?" Tushan Ling looked at Tushan Yu and said, "Qin Chuan has explained clearly that he didn't read Master Li's notes because he wanted to focus on Master Tianyin's notes. After all, he's going to meet Master Tianyin in the future. It's normal for him to make more preparations." Hearing Tushan Ling, Tushan Yu pondered for a while, then said to Tushan Ling, "But the family is still waiting for our reply. Are we going to wait forever? There's at least half a month of time before the Talisman Formation Master Exchange meeting ends. At that time, if Qin Chuan obtains the top 3 rankings in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange meeting, then he'll have the chance to comprehend a Dao insight. At that time, the other powers will surely make a move to recruit Qin Chuan." Because of Tushan Ling, Tushan clan was the first force to receive the news. They quickly took action to cover up the news. The news of a super genius appearing in Sinai Galaxy wouldn't spread for a short period of time. However, as time passed, the news would definitely leak out. By then, it would be much more difficult for them to recruit Qin Chuan. "We can't delay this any longer. We have to find a way to solve this as soon as possible," Tushan Yu said in a deep voice. "We can wait, but that person in the family can't." Hearing Tushan Yu mention that person, Tushan Ling's expression immediately turned solemn as he replied, "I know. I'll try my best to get in touch with Qin Chuan and try to recruit him." Hearing this, Tushan Yu took a deep look at Tushan Ling and said, "Tushan Ling, if you can recruit Qin Chuan this time, I'll definitely recommend you to the family as a deacon of the family. You'll enjoy the 3rd-class treatment." Hearing this, Tushan Ling's face immediately revealed a wisp of pleasant surprise. He said to Tushan Yu, "Elder 7, don't worry. I won't let you and the family down." Chapter 889. Qin Chuan didn't expect that Tushan Ling would ask him to meet again so soon. After much consideration, Qin Chuan decided to accept Tushan Ling's invitation. He wanted to see what Tushan Ling wanted this time. Late at night, Qin Chuan showed up at a bar in Sinai City at the appointed time. Looking at the psychedelic lighting effects in the bar, he couldn't help but frown. To be honest, he didn't like noisy places like this. If Tushan Ling didn't ask him to meet here, he wouldn't have come at all. "Brother Qin, this way." Tushan Ling appeared out of nowhere and quickly walked to Qin Chuan's side. He led Qin Chuan to a private room. On the way, Tushan Ling saw Qin Chuan's frown. He chuckled and explained, "Actually, I didn't want to meet you here, but I have no choice. A friend of mine likes to come here, so I had to let you come here." Qin Chuan looked at Tushan Ling in surprise and asked, "Friend? Isn't it just the 2 of us?" Tushan Ling smiled mysteriously at Qin Chuan and whispered, You'll know when you see him. I asked you to come here to give you benefits." While speaking, Tushan Ling pushed open the door of the private room and pulled Qin Chuan in. He cheered at the people in the room and said loudly, "Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you. This is the super genius of Sinai Galaxy, Qin Chuan." Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing when they heard Tu Shanling's words. They turned to look at Qin Chuan, who was standing beside Tu Shanling. Facing the gazes of the crowd, Qin Chuan's eyes could not help but flash with surprise. He did not expect that the people in the private room were all women. Moreover, every single one of them had outstanding looks and figures. It was just like a nest of beauties. Qin Chuan didn't know what to say. In order to make him join Tushan family, Tushan Ling wasn't trying to seduce him, was he? If he was really obsessed with beauties, he wouldn't have been single until now. So, this is the famous Prince Qin. You are indeed a talent. You deserve your reputation. A beautiful figure in a red gauze stood up slowly and walked to Qin Chuan with a glass of wine. She looked at Qin Chuan with her beautiful eyes, full of charm. Qin Chuan wasn't tempted by the woman's seduction. He said to Tushan Ling indifferently, "Brother Ling, if you call me here to have fun, I'll go back first. I'm not interested in these things. Brother Qin, I'm not a lecherous man, and I didn't prepare these for you." Tushan Ling chuckled and pulled Qin Chuan around the woman to the innermost part of the room. He pointed at the fat man who was holding two beauties and said to Qin Chuan, "Today, I prepared all these for him." Qin Chuan looked at the fat man who was holding two beauties and groping them. A subtle light flashed through his eyes. "Who was this man?" Tushan Ling chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "Let me introduce you. This is the famous Master Huan Yu." Hearing Tushan Ling, Qin Chuan showed a trace of surprise in his eyes. He said in surprise, "Master Huan Yu, a level 5 talisman formation master?" Tushan Ling smiled and nodded, then said to Qin Chuan, "Yes, that Master Huan Yu. Now, you know why I called you here, don't you?" Hearing this, Qin Chuan showed a strange look. He had heard about Master Huan Yu, but he never thought that Master Huan Yu was such a lecherous man. He and Tushan Ling were standing right in front of Master Huan Yu, but Master Huan Yu didn't even raise his head to look at them. It seemed that all his attention was focused on the beauties around him. No wonder he was called Huan Yu. Seeing the strange look on Qin Chuan's face, Tushan Ling coughed slightly and sent a message to Qin Chuan. "This Master Huan Yu is a bit lecherous, but he's really good at talisman formations. As your brother, in order to get you this chance to learn from Master Huan Yu, I spent a lot of effort to recruit these beauties. You have to seize this chance." Hearing Tushan Ling, Qin Chuan didn't know whether he should thank Tushan Ling or not. For a while, he didn't know what to say. Seeing Qin Chuan remain silent, Tushan Ling gave a bitter smile and said, "What's wrong? You don't like it, do you? I've tried my best. Except for this Master Huan Yu, the other masters are too hard to get in touch with and too hard to invite." Hearing this, Qin Chuan immediately said to Tushan Ling, "Brother Ling, how can I not be satisfied with your kindness? I'm just worried about how to communicate with this Master Huan Yu. This Master Huan Yu didn't seem to be reliable, but as long as this Master Huan Yu is really good, he could ignore everything else for now. Let me help you." Tushan Ling chuckled, then turned to Master Huan Yu and said, "Master Huan Yu, I brought you two more stunning beauties. Would you like to take a look?" Hearing Tushan Ling, Master Huan Yu, who was flirting with beauties, immediately raised his head and asked excitedly, "Two more stunning beauties? Where are they? Where are they?" Looking at Master Huan Yu's anxious face, Tushan Ling chuckled and explained to Master Huan Yu, "Master Huan Yu, you finally noticed us two brothers. What do you think of our appearances?" When Master Huan Yu heard Tu Shanling's words, he knew that Tu Shanling was lying. He said to Tu Shanling unhappily, "If you don't have anything important, don't disturb me." Master Huan Yu lowered his head and was about to continue flirting. At this moment, Tushan Ling stepped forward to stop Master Huan Yu and said, "This is Qin Chuan, the super genius that I want to introduce to you. He has a few questions for you about talisman arrays. It won't be too late if you answer his questions first. I promise that you'll have a good time here." Master Huan Yu was a bit impatient at first, but after thinking about the power behind Tishan Ling, he sighed helplessly and turned to Qin Chuan. He said to Qin Chuan, "I'll only answer 3 questions. Ask me again after you've thought it through." 3 questions sounded like very little, but this was an opportunity to seek guidance from a Grade 5 Talisman Formation Master. Who knew how many Grade 4 Talisman Formation Masters dreamed of having such an opportunity? Qin Chuan naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity that had come knocking on his door. He opened his mouth and asked Master Huan Yu his first question. "Master Huan Yu, may I ask how I can improve my spiritual energy?" Chapter 890. A long time ago, Qin Chuan found that the growth of his mental strength had reached a bottleneck. For a long time, there was almost no progress. This led to his current mental strength being only able to inscribe a level 3 glyph array. When he wanted to inscribe a level 4 glyph array, he had to use a glyph brush or even a glyph array. He had looked up a lot of information, but he couldn't find any way to improve his mental strength. This problem had been bothering him for a long time. Now that he was facing Master Huan Yu, he hoped to find a perfect solution. After hearing Qin Chuan's question, Master Huan Yu chuckled and asked, "I think your mental strength should be at the bottleneck of the fog condensation realm, right?" Hearing this, Qin Chuan was slightly stunned. He asked back, "What is the fog condensation realm?" Master Huan Yu was a little surprised that Qin Chuan didn't even understand this, but he didn't ask much. He just explained faintly, "A normal cultivator's mental strength is generally loose and doesn't have any special abilities. However, a talisman array master is different. A high-level talisman array master needs to use a high concentration of mental strength when inscribing a talisman array. Therefore, a third-level talisman array master's mental strength is basically at the condensing fog realm. As for those talisman array masters who can create an array in the void, their mental strength is at the condensing liquid realm. If your mental strength doesn't increase for a long time, it means that you have encountered a bottleneck. You need to break through the bottleneck to enter the next realm and become stronger. If you want to become a 5th-level talisman array master, you must have at least the mental strength of the condensing core realm. Fog condensation, liquid condensation, core condensation. These are the levels of mental strength." Hearing Master Huan Yu's explanation, Qin Chuan's eyes couldn't help but have a subtle look. Master Huan Yu guessed that his mental strength was at the bottleneck of the fog condensation realm. However, he also said that a glyph array master who could inscribe arrays had a mental strength of the liquid condensation realm. In other words, his mental strength should be at the liquid condensation realm. He should want to break through to the core condensation realm. After understanding this, Qin Chuan made the best of his mistake. He said to Master Huan Yu, "Master, please tell me how to break through the bottleneck. Please tell me in detail about the liquid condensation realm and the core condensation realm." Hearing Qin Chuan's request, Master Huan Yu frowned slightly. He seemed to be a little unhappy. However, because of Tishan Ling, who was standing beside him, he could only explain to Qin Chuan in detail how to break through the bottleneck of mental strength. As I said just now, a glyph array master's mental strength is generally at the fog condensation realm. Only those who are born with the ability to inscribe arrays will have a mental strength of the 3rd stage. Generally speaking, every glyph array master's mental strength is related to his brain. The larger the brain space, the higher the mental strength. For a level 4 glyph array master, the mental strength of the fog condensation realm is enough. However, if you want to become a level 5 glyph array master, then you must have the mental strength of the liquid condensation realm. It's actually not difficult to break through the bottleneck. You can advance to the Dongshu realm in terms of cultivation and use your powerful realm to drive the growth of your mental strength. This is the most common way. In addition, there's another way, which is to take treasures of heaven and earth that can increase mental strength, such as the night spirit grass. The 2 methods I'm talking about are aimed at advancing from the fog condensation realm to the liquid condensation realm. If you want to advance from the liquid condensation realm to the core condensation realm, these ordinary methods won't work. You must expand the capacity of your brain. Simply speaking, the brain is a pond, and the mental strength is the water in the pond. The larger the pond, the more water it can hold. This theory is simple to say, but it's extremely difficult to do. After all, the brain is the most mysterious and fragile part of the human body. It's very dangerous to expand the capacity of the brain. However, I don't know the specific methods. If you're interested, you can ask around. After listening to Master Huan Yu's explanation, Qin Chuan also understood where his problem was. The reason why his mental strength stopped growing was probably not because he had reached a bottleneck, but because a part of his brain was blocked by the rune sword. Thinking back carefully, the reason why his mental strength stopped growing was because a part of his brain was blocked by the rune sword. It seems that I need to find a way to awaken the rune sword and let it unblock my brain. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about these things, Master Huan Yu impatiently asked Qin Chuan, "What other questions do you have? Hurry up and ask." Hearing this, Qin Chuan came back to his senses and said to Master Huan Yu, "My second question. May I ask, Master Huan Yu, is there any necessary connection between the Dongshu realm and a level 5 talisman array master?" Master Huan Yu was slightly stunned when she heard this. Then she laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "Let me tell you this. A Dongshu realm cultivator may not be a level 5 talisman array master, but a level 5 talisman array master is definitely a Dongshu realm cultivator. I've lived for almost 1,000 years, but I've never heard of anyone who could become a level 5 talisman array master in the soul formation stage." Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled and asked, "Why is that?" To put it simply, it's related to the brain. Every time we cultivators advance, our brain will be strengthened. If you want to become a level 5 talisman array master, you must have at least the mental strength of the liquid level. Below the Dongshu realm, very few cultivators have the mental strength of the liquid level. Qin Chuan was somewhat puzzled and asked, "Didn't Master Huan Yu say that the talisman array masters who can create an array in the void basically have the mental strength of the liquid level?" "I did say that. But do you think it's very easy to become a level 5 talisman array master?" Master Huan Yu laughed. Compared to advancing to the Dongshu realm, it's more difficult to become a level 5 talisman array master. Some talisman array masters may not be able to become a level 5 talisman array master after advancing to the Dongshu realm, let alone before advancing. Hearing this, Qin Chuan was somewhat curious and asked, "Then how do I know the mental strength of my own mental strength?" Master Huan Yu smiled and said, "Is this your third question?" Facing the cunning Master Huan Yu, Qin Chuan said helplessly, "Yes. It's simple. Take this thing." Master Huan Yu took out a fist-sized white crystal from his storage ring and threw it to Qin Chuan. He said to Qin Chuan, "This thing is a tool to test your mental strength. It's called the condensed crystal. When you inject your mental strength into it, the color of the condensed crystal will change. Gray is the mist level, blue is the liquid level, and purple is the core level. The darker the color, the higher your mental strength, and the closer you are to the bottleneck." Qin Chuan looked at the condensed crystal in his hand. After a moment of silence, he said to Master Huan Yu, "Thank you for your guidance." Okay. If you really want to thank me, why don't you leave now? Don't disturb my mood." Master Huan Yu waved his hand at Qin Chuan. He couldn't wait to start enjoying the beautiful nightlife. Chapter 891. After leaving the room, Tushan Ling looked at Qin Chuan and asked, "How do you feel?" Hearing this, Qin Chuan looked at Tushan Ling and said sincerely, "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Ling. I will remember this." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Tushan Ling chuckled and gave Qin Chuan a meaningful glance. Then, he said to Qin Chuan, "Brother Qin, to be honest, I am doing this for you because I have a favor to ask of you." Qin Chuan wasn't surprised by Tushan Ling's words. He looked at Tushan Ling and said, "Brother Ling, if you have something to say, just say it. As long as it doesn't go against my principles, I will do whatever I can." Tushan Ling looked at Qin Chuan deeply and asked, "Brother Qin, what do you think of my Tushan family?" Qin Chuan answered without hesitation, The Tushan family is the most powerful family in Tron Nebula. Even in the entire celestial cluster, you are famous. I feel that you are powerful. Qinchuan wasn't flattering the Tushan family on purpose. Instead, the Tushan family was indeed powerful. Hearing Qinchuan's answer, Tushan Ling smiled and asked Qinchuan, "Then, if I invite Brother Qin to join the Tushan family in the name of the Tushan family, will you accept?" Facing Tushan Ling's straightforward question, Qinchuan pursed his lips and said to Tushan Ling, "Brother Ling, do you want to hear the truth from me?" Tushan Ling's expression changed slightly. Then he smiled and said, "I want to be friends with Brother Qin because I want to be honest with him. Of course, I want to hear the truth from Brother Qin." Qinchuan let out a long sigh and said to Tushan Ling, "The Tushan family is powerful in Tron Nebula. I can't afford to offend them. But if I had to choose, I would prefer to be a free man, unrestrained by any forces." Originally, Qinchuan didn't want to say these words to Tu Shanliang. However, Tu Shanliang did help him a lot tonight. He couldn't deny this fact. Therefore, when Tu Shanliang invited him, he said these words frankly instead of pretending to be polite. Hearing Qinchuan's answer, Tu Shanliang looked at Qinchuan in a complicated way. He looked at Qinchuan and said, "Brother Qin, please believe me. We sincerely want to invite you to join our Tushan family. We will never put any shackles on you. You are still you." Hearing this, Qinchuan took a deep look at Tushan Ling and asked, "Brother Ling, can you make the decision on this?" Facing Qinchuan's question, Tushan Ling's expression changed again and again. He indeed couldn't make a decision on this matter. He said those words just to calm Qinchuan down. Unexpectedly, Qinchuan didn't want to cooperate with him at all and directly exposed him. Qinchuan sighed when he saw Tushan Ling fall silent, and then he said to Tushan Ling, "Brother Ling, if your Tushan clan is really sincere, then why don't you let someone who can make the decision come talk to me? I'll be participating in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange in Sinai City during this period of time, and I won't be going anywhere." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Tushan Ling took a deep breath and said to Qinchuan, "The seventh elder is upstairs. I will take you to see him." Qinchuan didn't expect that there would be such a quiet reception room upstairs. At this moment, Tushan Yu was sitting on the sofa in the reception room, leisurely drinking tea. When he saw Tushan Ling and Qinchuan come in, he pointed at the chair in front of him and said blandly, "Sit." Qinchuan slowly walked to the chair and sat down facing Tushan Yu. He didn't speak immediately. He was waiting for Tushan Yu to speak first. Tushan Yu wasn't in a hurry to speak either. After slowly making a pot of tea, he said to Qinchuan, "Tell me, what's your condition?" Hearing Tushan Yu's words, Qinchuan remained silent for a while before answering, "I need some time." "Time?" Tushan Ling looked at Qinchuan curiously and asked, "What do you want to do?" Qinchuan puckered his lips and said to Tushan Ling, "I want to quietly participate in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and I'll discuss joining with all of you after all of this is over. I can promise all of you that if I want to join a power, then I'll definitely choose your Tushan clan." Hearing Qinchuan's words, Tushan Yu was puzzled and asked, "Why do you want to talk about joining only after the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference?" "Because I need some time to solve some things." Rather than solving some things, it was better to say that he wanted to verify some things. He wanted to see if he could comprehend the Tao runes in a month. Although this idea was bold and even crazy, Qinchuan really wanted to give it a try. If he could do it, he wouldn't need to join the Tushan clan. A fifth-tier battle formation master was qualified and confident to refuse the Tushan clan. Of course, all this was just Qinchuan's assumption. He had to try it out to know the specifics. Hearing Qinchuan's answer, Tushan Yu couldn't help but fall silent. He really wanted to know what Qinchuan needed time to solve. However, it seemed that Qinchuan didn't want to talk about it. Tushan Yu might not be able to get anything out of him, even if he asked. "Qinchuan, can you take responsibility for what you said?" Tushan Yu took a deep glance at Qinchuan. "I don't want to hear the news that you've joined other forces. Do you understand?" Qinchuan nodded solemnly and said to Tushan Yu, "I know how powerful the Tushan clan is in Tron Nebula. I won't make a stupid decision that will make me live in fear for the rest of my life. I hope so. Tushan Yu waved his hand and said, "All right, you can leave now." At this moment, Tushan Yu's attitude towards Qin Chuan was completely different from when they first met. Qin Chuan didn't care about this. After entering the negotiation stage, if Tushan Yu's attitude towards him still didn't change, Qin Chuan would have to carefully consider whether he should continue to have any relationship with the Tushan clan. Goodbye. Qin Chuan stood up and walked outside. After Qin Chuan left, Tushan Ling immediately kneeled down on one knee in front of Tushan Yu and said in an extremely frightened tone, "Seventh Elder, I didn't do my job well. Please punish me." "No need." Tushan Yu shook his head and said, "If Qin Chuan could be controlled so easily, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to set up a trap for him. Let's stop here for now. We'll wait patiently until the conference is over before we contact Qin Chuan. As long as he's afraid of death, I don't think he'll accept any invitation from other forces. One more thing, we don't need to keep those who know that Qin Chuan has mastered the law of thunder alive. Kill them all." Tushan Yu's words had already decided the life and death of several divinity transformation cultivators. In his eyes, these people were nothing but ants, not worth mentioning at all. Chapter 892. In the room, Qin Chuan sat cross-legged on the floor. His face was expressionless. He looked at the condensed crystal in his hand and tried to inject his mental strength into it. As his mental strength was injected, the color of the condensed crystal also gradually changed from a faint gray to a blue, and then gradually to a dark blue. Looking at the color change of the condensed crystal in his hand, Qin Chuan whispered, "My mental strength is indeed at the liquid level, but it seems that I haven't reached the bottleneck. There should still be a little distance from the limit." That little distance was in the brain region that was sealed by the runic sword. Once the seal was unsealed, his mental strength was very likely to rush into the core formation stage. Runic sword. Thinking of the runic sword, Qin Chuan couldn't help but have a headache. Ever since he passed the nascent soul stage lightning tribulation, the runic sword had sealed that part of his brain region. During this period, he tried many times to awaken the runic sword, but the runic sword didn't respond at all. This time, Qin Chuan was prepared to try again, but it wasn't just a simple call, but to let the little armored dragon help him. "Little armored dragon, what are you doing?" Qin Chuan looked at the little armored dragon that was snoring on the demon core, and his face was full of helplessness. Ever since the last abnormal movement, this little fellow had returned to its gluttonous and lazy appearance. Every day, it would lie on the demon core without even lifting its eyelids. It was simply sleeping more than a pig. In the face of Qin Chuan's call, the little armored dragon only raised its eyelids slightly and glanced at Qin Chuan, then turned its head and continued to sleep comfortably, completely ignoring Qin Chuan. Seeing this scene, Qin Chuan really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He reached out and poked the little armored dragon's carapace. After seeing that the little armored dragon still didn't have any reaction, he had no choice but to reach out and summon a monster core into his hand. Without the demon core as a bed, the little armored dragon's body immediately fell downwards. The little armored dragon woke up almost instantly from its slumber. With a whoosh, it flew in front of Qin Chuan. From the angry look on its face, it seemed to be very angry. "All right, don't be angry. I didn't mean to disturb your sleep. I have something I need your help with." Qin Chuan pointed at the seal brain region not far away and asked the little armored dragon, "Can you go in?" When the little armored dragon heard Qin Chuan's words, it turned to look at the sealed brain region and shook its head. It had never entered it before. Upon hearing that, Qin Chuan asked the little armored dragon expectantly, "Do you want to go in and take a look?" Hearing Qin Chuan's words, the little armored dragon shook its head again. What was there to see in there? It was better to sleep. When Qin Chuan saw the little armored dragon shake its head in rejection, he chuckled and said to the little armored dragon, "I heard that you can devour everything. I wonder if you could devour the seal in that sealed land?" When the little armored dragon heard Qinchuan's words, it curled its lips cutely, as if it disdained to communicate with Qinchuan. Qinchuan was underestimating its intelligence too much. Seeing the little armored dragon's expression, Qinchuan smiled awkwardly, then said to the little armored dragon, "I was just joking with you. Now, to be honest, I want to ask you to do me a favor. Try to see if you can break the seal in this sealed land. I have something important to do with the runic sword." Hearing Qinchuan's request, the little armored dragon couldn't help but reveal a troubled expression. The reason why it never entered that area was because it could clearly sense the existence of danger from it. Now, facing Qinchuan's request, it didn't know whether it should help or not. Seeing the little armored dragon's hesitation, Qinchuan immediately said to the little armored dragon, "I don't necessarily want you to break it. I just want you to give it a try. If there is any danger, you can stop immediately and prioritize protecting yourself." After hearing Qinchuan's words, the little armored dragon finally stopped hesitating. It flapped its wings and flew toward the sealed area. It took a closer look at the pale golden barrier, opened its mouth, and took a fierce bite on it. Crunch! The little armored dragon's face immediately revealed a painful expression. It actually spat out 2 little golden teeth. Qinchuan, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but be dumbfounded when he saw this scene. My goodness, the little armored dragon's teeth actually broke. This is too terrifying. The little armored dragon looked at the 2 little teeth in its little palm and couldn't help but reveal an aggrieved expression. It looked up at Qinchuan and opened its mouth, indicating to Qinchuan to look at the place where its teeth had fallen out. Qinchuan was both distressed and amused when he saw this. The little armored dragon's bite actually didn't leave any mark on this barrier. It seems that we can't count on it. Qinchuan glanced at the place where the little armored dragon had bitten and sighed helplessly. It seemed that he had to think of another way now. Just as Qinchuan was about to leave with this thought in his mind, the barrier suddenly trembled and rumbled like an earthquake. Seeing this scene, Qinchuan and the little armored dragon immediately distanced themselves from the barrier. They looked at the trembling barrier in bewilderment, not understanding what was going on. Could it be that the little armored dragon's bite actually had some effect? Qinchuan was somewhat puzzled. Is the runic sword about to awaken? When this thought appeared in Qinchuan's mind, the barrier trembled more and more violently, and then it shattered with a loud bang. Endless golden runes gushed out from it like spring water, completely illuminating Qinchuan's mind into a golden world. Buzz! Qinchuan looked at the golden runes floating in all directions with great astonishment. This reminded him of the sea of runes he saw when he first came into contact with the secret of the bronze square box. Just as Qinchuan was thinking about this, the endless golden runes suddenly gathered in front of Qinchuan and turned into a broken golden longsword. It looked like a runic sword. Looking at the broken runic sword, Qinchuan's eyes flashed with surprise. He didn't understand how the runic sword had become like this. Buzz! Suddenly, the runic sword emitted a golden light that shone directly between Qinchuan's eyebrows. At this moment, Qinchuan seemed to have formed a connection with the runic sword and could understand the emotions of the runic sword. Runic sword. Qinchuan looked at the runic sword in front of him and murmured in a low voice, "Is this your original appearance?" The original runic sword was just an illusion. Now, Qinchuan saw the real runic sword. In this connection, Qinchuan also understood one thing. If he wanted to heal the runic sword, he had to help the runic sword find something in the vast universe, and then draw power from it to repair the runic sword. And that thing was called Tao runes. Chapter 893. After he dealt with the matter with the Tushan clan, Qinchuan started to concentrate on studying the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. According to past practice, the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange would continue for an entire 3 days. During these 3 days of time, the Talisman Formation Masters that registered to participate in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange could head to the organizer's office in advance to choose a booth, and the booth would be selected by drawing lots. On the way to the organizer's office, Qingchuan asked Sisi with a slightly curious expression. The booth is completely dependent on drawing lots. Is there really no back door? Sisi chuckled when she heard Qingchuan's question, and then she said to Qingchuan, there's naturally an inside story behind the drawing of lots. Those with backgrounds will naturally be able to obtain good lots in advance, whereas those without backgrounds can only head over to the venue to draw lots, and it's up to them to draw lots. Qingchuan asked curiously when he heard this. Is the location of the booth very important? Sisi glanced at Qingchuan with a slightly strange expression and asked, haven't you been studying the Talisman Formation Master Exchange in the past few days? How could you not even know about the most basic thing? Qingchuan scratched his head with slight embarrassment and said, I was indeed studying the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, but the direction of my research was different. Qingchuan's objective in studying the Talisman Formation Master Exchange was mainly focused on the rewards for the top 3, and it was the opportunity to comprehend Dao markings. In Qingchuan's opinion, being in the top 3 of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange was probably the best opportunity he could find in the near future. He really wanted to rely on this opportunity to repair his talisman sword, and if he missed this opportunity, then he really didn't know when he would encounter such an opportunity again. After a period of research, Qingchuan noticed a rule that was extremely beneficial to him, and it was that he could comprehend 2 Dao markings at the same time during this month of time. Sisi gazed at Qingchuan and asked with slight curiosity, then what's the direction of your research? Qingchuan chuckled when he heard this, and then he answered, I'm researching the direction of comprehending Dao markings. I saw in the records of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange in the past that the top 3 Talisman Formation Masters were able to move freely between 2 Dao markings for a month of time, and they weren't restricted to a single place. When she heard Qingchuan's answer, Sisi asked with slight bewilderment, could it be that you want to comprehend both Dao runes in a month's time? The reason why there is such a setting in this matter is because the reward this time is not so much for the top 3 to comprehend the Dao rune, but rather for the top 3 to visit the Dao rune. Many people would choose to travel between the 2 to broaden their horizons. This is a normal thing. Sisi felt that it was very strange because Qingchuan shouldn't be the type of person that would research such useless things. Qingchuan just smiled when facing Sisi's puzzlement, and he didn't have any intention of explaining. Perhaps running between the 2 places was only a form of sightseeing to others, but it wasn't so to him. After the flying shuttle stopped at the location where the Talisman Formation Master Exchange was held, Qingchuan and Sisi stood up and walked out of the flying shuttle, and then they shot their gazes toward the location before them. It was an enormous square. On the square, over 100 crystal platforms that covered an area of 100 meters floated slowly in midair, and they revolved lightly, causing it to seem extremely illusory. These platforms are the exhibition platforms that all of you have to draw lots to choose. At that time, all of you have to stand on these exhibition platforms and display the talisman formations you've grasped in order to obtain the attention of the spectators. Sisi sighed with emotion as she gazed at these exhibition platforms. My luck wasn't bad all those years ago, and I drew a decent exhibition platform. But unfortunately, I didn't have any popularity at all, and I was eliminated very easily. When he heard Sisi sigh with emotion, Qingchuan asked with slight curiosity, is popularity useful? Sisi knew that Qingchuan hadn't done his homework beforehand, so she patiently explained to Qingchuan, not only do the Talisman Formation Masters have to compete in their respective strengths during the exchange, they have to compete in their popularity as well. If you want to obtain a good ranking in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, then you must possess sufficient popularity, and the audience voting is an extremely important segment of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. Qingchuan couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Sisi's explanation, and then he asked with slight astonishment, audience voting? There's actually such a segment? Sisi nodded, and then she said to Qingchuan, amongst the 100-plus participating Talisman Formation Masters, Only the people in the top 100 with popularity will be able to enter the main competition of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and the others will be eliminated after the opening ceremony ends. What he heard was Cece's answer. Qin was truly slightly dizzy. He'd completely never imagined that the Talisman Formation Master Exchange actually had such a bizarre audience voting segment. Doesn't this mean that I have to do all I can to solicit votes during these 3 days? These positions wouldn't have been decided behind closed doors, right? Qin gazed at Cece. Things like votes are too easy to manipulate. Cece nodded helplessly and replied, "It's indeed so. Basically, almost 30 positions will be decided behind closed doors during every single Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and it's comparatively easy for people with status in Sane Galaxy to manipulate this sort of thing." When he heard Cece's answer, Qin heaved a long sigh of relief and said, "Then there's at least 70 positions left." Fortunately, even though a portion of the positions have been decided behind closed doors, there were still quite a number of positions left, and Qin was still confident that he could stand out amongst them. However, Qin hadn't been happy for long because Cece's next words sent him from heaven to hell. Don't get happy too early. Besides the positions that have been decided behind closed doors, there are still people who buy tickets. Cece gazed at Qin. Some Talisman Formation Master guilds will spend a large amount of money to buy tickets from the spectators for the sake of guaranteeing a position in the top 100, and there are actually very few positions that can be used to compete for the positions. This time, Qin was truly slightly stunned. Not to mention the positions that have been decided behind closed doors, there are actually people who can buy tickets openly. Isn't buying tickets a little too showy? Could it be that the organizer doesn't care at all? Qin had an expression of shock. Aren't they afraid that they'll just make up the numbers? You're thinking too much. Cece laughed bitterly. Basically, the top 3 in every Talisman Formation Master Exchange meeting would be decided from the predetermined spots. Very few Talisman Formation Masters that bought tickets to enter the top 100 are able to enter the top 10, let alone the top 3. So the organizer doesn't care at all if people buy tickets. Moreover, this can be considered as an unspoken rule, and it's like spending money to buy a position in the top 100. Qin gazed at Cece with a strange gaze and asked, "How much money did you prepare for my ticket?" Cece gazed at Qin in an extremely serious manner when she heard this and replied, "Not a single cent, I'm poor." Chapter 894. Qin looked at Cece, who had a helpless expression, and he couldn't help but arouse the impulse to turn around and leave. Not to mention that he wasn't able to obtain a spot on the exhibition platform. He wasn't able to purchase tickets either. So how could he compete with the others? You thought so highly of me that day, and you tried your best to invite me to join your Talisman Formation Master Association and represent all of you to participate in this exchange. Could it be that you've never thought that I would be eliminated if I couldn't buy a ticket? Qin's mind was truly filled with question marks now. On what basis is Cece so confident that I'll be able to fight my way out of this encirclement? The gaze Cece shot at Qin couldn't help but become slightly complicated when she heard this, and then she explained in a low voice. If you want to stand out during the opening ceremony, then you must have an extremely outstanding display. Moreover, the combination of talisman formations you possess is extremely rare, and it'll surely draw the attention of many spectators at that time. After he heard Cece's explanation, Qin finally understood where Cece's confidence in him came from. At this moment, he didn't know whether he should cry or laugh because the feeling of being trusted by another was truly slightly strange. President Zhua, are you sure that my combination of talisman formations will surely be able to dazzle everyone? Qin looked at Cece. Could it be that the other talisman formation masters don't have any unique skills? Since everyone has the confidence to participate in this exchange, then they naturally have trump cards. But I believe that it shouldn't be difficult for you to seize a spot. So long as you're able to enter the top 100, then the rest will be a competition of true strength. This is where you're the strongest. Zhuo looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely serious gaze, and then she said to Qin Chuan, I believe that you'll surely be able to be ranked in the top 10 or even the top 3. Thank you for your trust and encouragement. Qin Chuan shrugged helplessly. I'll do my best. No matter if it was for the sake of completing the agreement between him and Zhuo or for the sake of getting close to Daowan, Qin Chuan would do his best during the Talisman Formation Master Exchange meeting this time. Even if there was no path, he would forcefully create a path and continue walking until the end. After chatting about this, Qin Chuan and Zhuo walked into the office. At this time, there were not many people in the office. Those who needed to draw lots had already done so. Those who didn't need to draw lots wouldn't come here. Therefore, it didn't take long for Qin Chuan to draw lots for his booth. D89. Qin Chuan didn't feel anything when he saw the lot, but Zhuo face suddenly turned ugly. After noticing the change in Zhuo face, Qin Chuan asked subconsciously, Is there a problem with the lot? Zhuo smiled bitterly and said to Qin Chuan, What a coincidence. I drew this lot that year. I didn't expect it to be your turn again this year. Qin Chuan's face changed slightly when he heard Zhuo, and he asked, Is this lot very bad? Zhuo nodded and said to Qin Chuan, It really isn't very good. Come with me. I'll take you to see the location of this booth. Qin Chuan followed behind Zhuo and left the office to arrive at the square. After they walked to a corner of the square, she pointed at the slightly lonely booth that floated in midair and said to Qin Chuan, This is booth D89. Qin Chuan glanced at booth D89 with slight astonishment, and then he swept his gaze towards the surroundings and asked, Where are the spectator areas? Other than a slightly larger platform near booth D89, there wasn't a single seat for the audience. There are no spectator areas here. Zhuo sighed and said, On the day of the opening ceremony, this is where the musicians are. Because it's relatively noisy, there are no spectator areas here. Even the nearest spectator area is at least a few hundred meters away from you. Qin Chuan's face suddenly became a little ugly when he heard Zhuo words. He really didn't expect that his luck would be so bad that he would draw such a good lot. Seeing Qin Chuan's face become extremely ugly, Zhuo didn't know what to say. After all, no matter who encountered such an unlucky thing, they would feel very uncomfortable. After a long silence, Zhuo said to Qin Chuan with some hesitation, Maybe you can ask Grand Duke Angel for help. With Grand Duke Angel's ability, as long as she is willing to help you, then you will definitely get a good booth. Since you have been labeled as a junior of Grand Duke Angel, presumably Grand Duke Angel won't leave you alone, right? Qin Chuan shook his head and said to Zhuo, We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Hearing Qin Chuan's response, Zhuo knew that Qin Chuan didn't mean to ask Grand Duke Angel for help. Although she didn't understand why Qin Chuan made such a decision, she decided not to say anything more. Maybe Qin Chuan would create an impossible miracle. Qin Chuan didn't really care about drawing the worst booth in his heart. After all, his situation was already extremely bad, and it didn't matter if it was a little more. The reason why he didn't want to ask Grand Duke Angel for help was that he already owed Grand Duke Angel enough favors. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to owe her any more favors. I won't buy tickets if it's not decided, and I got the worst booth. I've encountered all the bad things, but things go in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Maybe I can bounce back. Qin Chuan sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes slightly closed. He filtered the talisman arrays he had mastered in his mind, trying to choose the most suitable one to display on the booth to attract the attention of the audience. The combination of the 5 elements rotation talisman array was a choice he would make when he had no other choice. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this matter, the news of him drawing the worst lot reached Grand Duke Angel's ears. After learning about this matter, Grand Duke Angel's expression could be said to be very playful. She was very curious about how Qin Chuan would react in such an extremely bad situation. Sophie stood at the side and looked at the smile on Angel's face. She said to Angel with some hesitation, Grand Duke, Qin Chuan has been labeled as your junior after all. If he doesn't perform well at the Talisman Array Master Exchange, It will definitely damage your reputation. If Qin Chuan comes to ask for your help later, you won't refuse him, right? Angel glanced at Sophie with a subtle gaze and asked, "Do you think Qin Chuan will come to me for help?" Sophie was slightly stunned when she heard Angel's words. She asked, "Doesn't he intend to ask you for help?" Angel chuckled and said to Sophie, "Although I haven't had much contact with Qin Chuan, I know him better than you. He will think of a way to deal with this matter by himself. He definitely won't ask me for help. I'm guessing he will definitely make a big move." Chapter 895. The opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange that everyone was looking forward to had finally arrived amidst all the cheering. On this day, no matter if it was the residents of the satellite cities or the locals of Sinistar, all of them flocked to the plaza. Even if they couldn't enter the plaza to watch the opening ceremony from a closer distance, they were still unwilling to leave as they wanted to personally witness this grand event unfold amidst the crowd. Qin Chuan arrived at the venue of the opening ceremony through the passageway used by the participants. At this moment, the venue was filled with a boiling cauldron of voices as everyone cheered loudly in excitement. As they gazed at the scene before them, many participants revealed faint excitement on their faces. Perhaps today was the moment when their names would spread throughout the world, and it was truly very difficult for them to maintain their calm. All participants, please find your booth according to your number. The opening ceremony will officially begin in half an hour. Please make your preparations. Along with the shouts of the staff, Qin Chuan's group spread out and walked towards their respective booths. Qin Chuan passed through the crowd and walked towards booth D89 by himself. His actions drew the attention of many nearby people, and every single one of them looked at Qin Chuan with gazes that were filled with pity and ridicule. So the unlucky fellow this year is this fellow. How pitiful. He actually drew the trashiest booth. Luck is also a part of strength. If it was me who drew the trashiest booth, I might have directly forfeited. Coming here to participate in the opening ceremony would only be a waste of time. Alas, we're all Talisman Formation Masters, so let's not sprinkle salt on his wounds. A trashiest booth is still a booth. Even though, alright, I can't continue lying. How pitiful. Qin Chuan silently walked on the path towards booth D89 as he listened to the low discussions behind him, yet there wasn't any change in his expression. It was as if he didn't care about what these people were saying at all. As for what exactly he was thinking at the bottom of his heart, only he himself knew. With a light tap of his foot, Qin Chuan flew up to booth D89. He first glanced at the band in front of him before looking towards the surroundings. Even though there were some spectators outside booth D89, they were scattered about and didn't seem to number more than 1,000. It was utterly incomparable to the other booths. Moreover, these scattered spectators were still doing their best to move towards the crowded area. Obviously, they weren't willing to stay nearby. Even though Qin Chuan had already mentally prepared himself before he came here, his feelings were still slightly complicated when he faced with this slightly cruel reality. Truthfully speaking, he didn't know if his plan forward would succeed or not. Once it failed, then he would have to pay the price for his confidence. Qin Chuan, you can do it. Cici's face was flushed red as she waved the support card at Qin Chuan. Even though it was a little embarrassing, she didn't want to make Qin Chuan seem too lonely. Qin Chuan looked at Cici's cute appearance and couldn't help but smile. He said softly, "Thank you." Bang! Suddenly, a violent roar came from the plaza. Immediately, brilliant fireworks bloomed in the sky above the plaza. The colorful fireworks made the entire sky seem as beautiful as a rainbow. Bang! Bang! Several rounds of cannon salutes sounded. Amidst the cheers of thousands of people, the figure of Odyssey the Great, the representative of the same galaxy's imperial family, slowly appeared in the sky. He had transformed into a giant that stood between heaven and earth. Everyone in Sane City could clearly see his figure and be illuminated by his brilliance. Looking at the dignified and solemn Odyssey the Great, all the citizens of Sane City enthusiastically shouted his name. Everyone looked at Odyssey the Great with eyes full of worship and respect. This was the strongest expert in the Sane galaxy, the eternal guardian god. Qin Xuan listened to the fanatical shouts and looked at the tall figure with a subtle expression on his face. The figure in front of him was the strongest expert in the Sane galaxy, Odyssey the Great, a powerful cultivator at the middle Dongxu stage. However, Odyssey the Great's strength was only limited to the Sane galaxy. If he were to be placed in the entire Tron Nebula, his strength would barely make it into the top 100. Odyssey the Great is only the great emperor of a galaxy in the end. He's only an ordinary cultivator in the outside world. Qin Xuan sighed. Others only saw Odyssey the Great's awe-inspiring appearance, but he saw Odyssey the Great's helplessness. As the current leader of the humanoid race, Odyssey the Great wasn't qualified. This was because the humanoid race didn't move step by step towards a better future under his rule. Instead, they were weakening bit by bit. The opening ceremony of the 96th Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference officially begins. Along with the dignified voice of Emperor Odyssey resounding out, the opening ceremony of the 96th Talisman Formation Master Exchange had finally officially begun. Excited music resounded out by Qin Xuan's ears as cheers surged out along with it. At the instant Emperor Odyssey's figure vanished, the Talisman Formation Masters that were already standing on their respective exhibition platforms had finally started to move, and they started inscribing Talisman Formations to display their talents. However, after a short moment, numerous extremely profound Talisman Formations floated up into appearance on the booths, and they emitted various radiances that drew the gazes of the spectators. On the other hand, at booth D89 in a remote corner, Qin Xuan didn't start inscribing Talisman Formations right away, and he was adjusting his state of mind instead. In the distance, a wisp of a helpless expression couldn't help but flash on Cici's face when she saw Qin Xuan didn't make any movements, and she said in a low voice, "Has he already given up?" The passionate music and the sparse figures formed a sharp contrast, and Qin Xuan seemed to be out of place amongst them. Under such circumstances, it was understandable that Qin Xuan had given up struggling. Right when Cici thought the matter was about to come to an end, Qin Xuan suddenly moved. Whem! A silver-white talisman diagram floated up into appearance before Qin Xuan, and along with Qin Xuan ceaselessly writing on it, the talisman diagram gradually became more and more complete. However, this talisman diagram seemed to be slightly unstable, and it seemed as if it would collapse at any moment. Qin Xuan maintained the stability of the talisman diagram to the extreme. He blocked off his hearing and concentrated all his energy on the talisman diagram before him, and he worked hard to complete the talisman diagram before him. However, along with the passage of time and the talisman diagram becoming more and more complete, the speed at which the tip of his pen descended became slower and slower. Chapter 896. Cici looked at Qin Xuan's strenuous appearance and couldn't help but reveal a trace of doubt on her face. She muttered in a low voice, "What is Qin Xuan doing? There doesn't seem to be anything special about this talisman array." In Cici's eyes, the talisman array that Qin Xuan was currently inscribing was completely unsurprising. It was just an ordinary talisman array that no one would be interested in. What was the point of inscribing such a featureless talisman array in such a remote corner? Just as Cici was puzzled, Sophie's figure suddenly appeared beside her and whispered, "Qin Xuan is trying to do something big." Cici was slightly stunned when she heard this. She asked in confusion, "What big thing is this?" Sophie took a deep look at Qin Xuan and said to Cici, "Qin Xuan is currently inscribing an experimental talisman array developed by Master Tianyin. If he succeeds, it means that Qin Xuan already has the ability to inscribe a 5th-level talisman array. He wants to become a 5th-level talisman array master during the opening ceremony and once again cause a stir in the entire Sane galaxy." Zwassisi couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock when she heard Sophie's explanation. She abruptly turned her head and looked at the talisman array that Qin Chuan had almost completed. She said in disbelief, "Is he really confident? Although I haven't had much contact with Qin Chuan, I've always known that he's someone who never does anything that he's not confident in." Sophie looked at Qin Chuan and couldn't help but think of the crushing battle that took place in front of the interstellar portal. When Qin Chuan said that he wanted to fight alone, she thought that Qin Chuan was crazy. However, reality proved that he wasn't crazy and indeed had the ability to do so. Now that Qin Chuan wanted to become a 5th-level talisman array master in public, others might think that Qin Chuan was indulging in fantasy, but she felt that Qin Chuan had the ability to do so. "I know he's very powerful, but this is really..." Zwassisi took a deep breath. "It's still too shocking." Even though Zwassisi had been anticipating that Qin Chuan would be able to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master since a very long time ago, she'd only entertained a fantasy at that time, and she didn't really feel that Qin Chuan had the ability to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master in such a short period of time. Now that Qin Chuan had suddenly broken through on the spot, it was impossible for her to not be suspicious. Actually, I was extremely surprised when I saw through Qin Chuan's thoughts earlier. The Talisman Formation Master Exchange has been held for the 96th time, yet there has never been a Talisman Formation Master that was able to break through to become a level 5 Talisman Formation Master during the opening ceremony. If Qin Chuan is really able to accomplish this, then he'll become the first person in history. Sophie couldn't help but sigh. As of now, Qin Chuan already possessed strength that wasn't inferior to a peak deity transformation stage cultivator. If he were to become a grade 5 talisman formation master as well, then Qin Chuan's status would be completely different from before, and he would truly become the star of Seine. Just as Sophie and Zwassisi were speaking, Qin Chuan's hand, which was inscribing the talisman array, trembled imperceptibly. However, it was this simple and minute tremble that caused a problem to appear in the talisman array diagram in front of Qin Chuan, causing it to collapse with a loud bang. Seeing this scene, the anticipation that had risen up in Zwassisi's heart with great difficulty fell back down again. A subtle look flashed through her eyes, and she said in a low voice, "He failed. The opening ceremony will last for 3 days, and this is only the beginning. You have to have confidence in him." Sophie gave Zwassisi a meaningful look and said, "After all, he represents your Heath City's Talisman Formation Master Association, and is also your husband in name." Hearing Sophie's words, Zwassisi's expression changed slightly, but she didn't say anything else. On the stage, Qin Chuan had already begun his second attempt. After the failure of his first attempt, Qin Chuan wasn't disappointed. Instead, he was full of confidence. "Sure enough, after unlocking the seal of the runic sword on my brain, my mental strength has been greatly enhanced. Now it's at least at the peak of the liquid stage, or even at the half-step core formation stage. It's enough to support me inscribing a grade 5 talisman formation array. If I hadn't made a mistake in my excitement just now, the experimental talisman array wouldn't have collapsed." After self-recognition and reflection, Qin Chuan took a deep breath and focused all his energy on inscribing the experimental talisman array. This time, he wanted to finish it in one fell swoop and cross the first hurdle that was blocking his path to a breakthrough. With the status of the Tushan family in Tron Nebula, as soon as Tushan Ling and Tushan Yu appeared, the organizer immediately arranged the best box for them and provided the best service. It could be said that they were even more attentive than when they served Odyssey the Great. Tushan Yu sat on a comfortable sofa and looked at the huge crystal screen in front of him. He asked Tushan Ling, "Which stage is Qin Chuan at?" Hearing this, Tushan Ling had a strange look on his face, and he answered, "He's at booth D89. Seeing the change of expression on Tushan Ling's face, Tushan Yu asked, "What's wrong with this stage?" Tushan Ling smiled and replied, "Stage D. 89 is the trashiest stage of all. Except for a band playing music, there is no auditorium. Even the auditorium closest to Stage D, 89 is 100 meters away. Tu Ling was really surprised when he learned the number of Chuan's stage. He didn't expect that Chuan would be so unlucky to draw such a trashiest stage. But this wasn't what surprised him the most. What surprised him the most was that Chuan didn't want to change his stage at all. He accepted it just like that. After hearing Tu Ling's explanation, you couldn't help but show a subtle expression. He said to Tu Ling, "Send a message to Chuan. If he needs it, we can help him change his stage at any time." Hearing Tu use words, Tu Ling hesitated and said, "He doesn't want to join us. Why should we help him?" "You're wrong. We're not helping him. Even if we wanted to help him, he wouldn't want to." Tu chuckled and said to Tu Ling, "I'm showing Chuan the power of our Tu family." Hearing Tu Yu's explanation, Tu Ling suddenly understood. He immediately said to Tu Yu, "No wonder you're the seventh elder. You're really smart. I'll arrange it right now." After Tu Ling left, Tu Yu displayed the scene around stage D89 on the crystal screen. Looking at Chuan, who was carving rune arrays, he couldn't help but have a trace of rumination in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "Chuan, oh Chuan, after this incident, you should know how cruel the reality is. A genius without a background is nothing more than a genius. He will never have the chance to exchange his potential for strength." Chapter 897. Time passed slowly. The first day of the opening ceremony was over just like that. During the day, the audience changed again and again, and the booth rotated back and forth twice. However, Chuan, who was sitting in the corner, never moved. Apart from the occasional absent-minded glance at him, almost no one paid any attention to this outsider. Chuan had already received the message sent by Tu Ling. However, he only appreciated the kindness of the Tu family. He had no intention of asking for their help at all, because he knew that the Tu family would not be so kind. Just a little bit more. Chuan looked at the only empty spot on the diagram with a hint of expectation in his eyes. As long as he could carve the last rune and successfully assemble the experimental rune array, he would be considered to have passed the hurdle and could attempt to carve a 5th-level rune array. Although Chuan was already a little tired, his mind was still 100% clear. He carved the rune bit by bit without any mistakes. When he finished the last stroke, the experimental rune array immediately released an extremely bright silver-white light and slowly emitted a faint wave of energy. "It's done." Chuan looked at the diagram floating in front of him with a hint of excitement on his face. He did it. Sophie and Zwisisi, who had been paying attention to Chuan from afar, could not help but become excited when they saw that Chuan had successfully carved the experimental rune array. They cheered for Chuan's success. "He did it. He really did it." Zwisisi cheered. "The youngest 5th-level rune array master in the history of the same galaxy is about to be born. He has only taken the first step. He still has the second, more important step to take, and that is to carve the real 5th-level rune array." Compared to the excited Zwisisi, Sophie was also very excited, but she still maintained a certain level of rationality. Chuan's current success was only a good start. The road that Chuan had to take next was the most critical and the most difficult one. Hearing Sophie's words, Zwisisi gradually calmed down. Just as Sophie had said, it was still too early for her to be happy. "Now, let's see what kind of level 5 talisman array Chuan is going to inscribe. I remember that there should be 2 auxiliary arrays in Master Tianing's notes. Chuan should have seen them before." Sophie curiously looked at Chuan, anticipating what Chuan would do next. However, to her surprise, Chuan actually sat down cross-legged and did not immediately begin to inscribe the level 5 glyph array. Seeing this scene, Zwisisi explained to Sophie, "Chuan has consumed a lot of spiritual power to inscribe this experimental glyph array. Now he needs to take a good rest and recover." So that's how it is. I don't know much about talisman formation masters, So I wonder how long Qin Xuan will require to recover. After all, there's only a little more than a day left until the opening ceremony. Sophie glanced at Zhuo and asked, "Do you have any idea?" Zhuo shook her head and replied, "Every talisman formation master situation is different. I also don't know how long Qin Xuan will require to recover." Hearing Zhuo reply, Sophie's expression immediately became somewhat subtle. She whispered, "I hope he won't need too long." What Sophie and Zhuo did not expect was that Qin Xuan's adjustment would take an entire day. Zhuo looked at Qin Xuan, who was still sitting cross-legged in meditation, and a wisp of anxiety couldn't help but flash across her face. She whispered, "There's less than 10 hours left until the opening ceremony ends. If Qin Xuan doesn't take action now, I'm afraid he won't have a chance." Sophie sighed and said to Zhuo, "Don't think about it. There's no chance." Qin Xuan took more than a day to inscribe that experimental glyph array. Even if he wakes up immediately and is in peak condition, it's still too difficult for him to inscribe a 5th-grade glyph array within 10 hours. For some veteran 5th-grade glyph array masters, inscribing a 5th-grade glyph array only required a thought. But for Qin Xuan, who had just touched the threshold of 5th-grade glyph array, being able to inscribe his first 5th-grade glyph array in 10 days was already considered a genius among geniuses. And there were only 10 hours left for Qin Xuan. After hearing Sophie's words, Zhuo expression immediately became unsightly. If Qin Xuan was eliminated, then not only would Qin Xuan lose, but their Caesar City Glyph Array Master Guild would also be removed from the list and would no longer be one of the top 10 Glyph Array Master Guilds. Zhuo felt a wave of dizziness when she thought of the consequences. Could it be that we really can't hold on to the foundation that Father left for us sisters? Everyone, please vote for contestant number 36 from Tianxing City, Yali. She's beautiful, has a sweet voice, and is extremely skilled at inscribing glyph arrays. Dear audience, please vote for contestant number 28 from Emma City, Sil. He's handsome and elegant, and is the dream of 900 million girls. Buy your tickets, buy your tickets. 1,000 star coins per ticket. Fair trade. Amidst the lively shouts, the majority of the audience swarmed towards the people who had bought the tickets. A small portion of the audience walked towards the contestants they admired, preparing to cast their precious votes for the contestants they admired. Facing those who had bought their tickets, those who were doing their best to canvass for votes couldn't help but reveal a trace of envy on their faces. If they also had such robust financial resources and strength, they wouldn't need to spend so much effort shouting here. In the crowd, Zhuo looked at the vast crowd around her and couldn't help but reveal a trace of apprehension on her face. Just a moment ago, her elder sister, Zhuo, had transferred a large sum of money to her, wanting her to buy Qin Xuan's tickets. However, they had set the price at 500 star coins per ticket, which was half of the price of others. What should she do amidst the shouts of 1,000 star coins for a ticket? Just as Zhuo was hesitating whether or not she should try shouting, an extremely astonishing fluctuation of energy suddenly came from afar, attracting everyone's attention and causing the scene to instantly quiet down. What an astonishing fluctuation of energy. What's going on over there? Some people looked in the direction of the fluctuation of energy with astonishment. As time passed, the fluctuation of energy became stronger and stronger, as if a sun was slowly rising, illuminating the entire square and even the entire Sinai city. I don't know. Is something big going to happen? Let's go and take a look. Go, go, go. Let's go and see what's going on over there. Amidst the rowdy cheers of the audience, the crowd went with the flow and surged in the direction of the energy fluctuations. At this moment, a booth that was like an isolated island drifting away from the public's view entered everyone's field of vision. Chapter 898. In the distance, a wisp of astonishment couldn't help but flash through the depths of Zhuo eyes as she gazed at booth D89 that had suddenly erupted with an extremely powerful fluctuation of energy and she asked in a low voice, "What's going on?" Sophie similarly frowned as she gazed at Qin Chuan, who sat cross-legged on the booth. Qin Chuan clearly didn't make any movements. So what's with the sudden fluctuation of energy? Could it be that Qin Chuan is about to break through to the intermediate stage of the soul transformation realm? Right when Zhuosisi and Sophie were puzzled by the sudden change in Qin Chuan's body, the spectators that had surged over after noticing the fluctuation of energy had arrived nearby, and all of them shot their gazes towards Qin Chuan, who sat cross-legged on booth D89. That fluctuation of energy seems to be emanating from this person. Could it be that he's cultivating on the booth? Someone raised this question with slight surprise. It was the first time that they'd seen a participating talisman formation master cultivating on the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange. Could it be that this booth wasn't used for talisman formation masters to display their talisman formations? Even though the organizer didn't strictly forbid cultivation on the booth, it was truly the first time that they'd seen a talisman formation master not doing his job on the booth. I thought some formidable talisman formation had appeared. So it turns out that it's the fluctuation of energy produced by cultivation. Disperse, disperse. Someone had a dejected expression. They'd come here to see if any unexpected surprises would appear, yet they'd never imagined that it was just a talisman formation master cultivating. It was truly disappointing. More and more people in the crowd revealed expressions of disappointment. Zhuosisi and Sophie couldn't help but reveal anxious expressions when they were about to leave. This place was so remote, and so many spectators had arrived with great difficulty. If they were to allow these spectators to leave just like that, then they might really lose. "Everyone, I know what he's doing. He's not cultivating." Right at this moment, Zhuosisi suddenly stood out and shouted towards the crowd. When the spectators that were about to leave heard Zhuosisi shout, all of them instinctively turned their heads to look at Zhuosisi, and their eyes revealed a wisp of curiosity. "You know what he's doing?" Someone asked Zhuosisi. "Then tell me what he's up to." "Yes, hurry up and tell us. We are still waiting to sell the tickets." Someone shouted at Zhuosisi. "If there is nothing else, we are leaving." When faced with the questions of everyone, Zhuosisi hesitated for a moment before making a decision in the end. She took a deep breath and said to everyone, "He's contestant number 109, Qin Chuan. He's not cultivating now, but attempting to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master." When Zhuosisi mustered up the courage to make a desperate decision to say these words, the scene suddenly quieted down, but the silence was soon broken by a burst of laughter. "Ha ha ha! I'm dying of laughter. Breaking through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master on the spot? You guys really dare to dream and boast." Exactly. Those that don't know would think that becoming a grade 5 talisman formation master is as simple as advancing from the Qi refinement realm to the foundation establishment realm. We can understand that all of you drew lots to a remote corner and wanted to use some methods to attract attention, but all of you said that he's attempting to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master. This is slightly exaggerated. Could it be that all of you think we're idiots? If you want to create a gimmick, then create a gimmick. Don't take all of us to be idiots and play tricks on us, all right? If he's really able to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master, then all of us will vote for him. But can he? When faced with the disdainful laughter and ridicule of the spectators, Zhuosisi's face couldn't help but flush red. She wanted to explain to the spectators and tell them that Qin Chuan was indeed attempting to break through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master. However, the spectators had utterly no intention of paying attention to her, and they all took her to be a mad woman. When she saw the spectators turn around and leave, Zhuosisi's eyes couldn't help but reveal a wisp of despair. Her gamble this time had failed, and not only would it cause Qin Chuan to be eliminated, it would even cause Qin Chuan to become the laughingstock of the entire Sinai city. "I screwed up and implicated Qin Chuan. It's my fault, it's all my fault, OM. Right at this moment, a silver-gray light was suddenly released from booth D89, illuminating the surroundings into a silver-gray world. A huge talisman formation slowly appeared above Qinchuan's head, emitting a heart-palpitating pressure. This sudden change alarmed everyone nearby. The spectators who were in the process of leaving all stopped in their tracks and turned to look at the huge talisman formation floating in the sky, their eyes revealing a wisp of astonishment. This aura, it can't really be a grade 5 talisman formation master, right? Oh my god, could it be that the person just now wasn't lying? This contestant number 109 has really broken through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master. I recognized this talisman formation master. It really is a grade 5 talisman formation master. An exclamation attracted the attention of the crowd. They all turned to look at the person who had said that he recognized this talisman formation master. Their eyes were filled with curiosity and anxiety, and they urgently wanted to know what kind of talisman formation master this was. Faced with the crowd's gazes, that person said to the crowd in an extremely excited tone, "This is a grade 5 talisman formation created by our Heavenly Sound City's great master Tianyin, the Heavenly Sound Formation Master. I once went to the Heavenly Sound City's Talisman Formation Master Association and was fortunate enough to see the Heavenly Sound Formation Master with my own eyes. I definitely won't be mistaken." After hearing this person's explanation, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They once again turned to look at Qinchuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the booth with his eyes closed. At this moment, their gazes were no longer filled with disdain and ridicule. Instead, there was only endless admiration and excitement. Everyone present had heard of the Heavenly Sound City's great master Tianyin. He was a renowned veteran grade 5 talisman formation master. Moreover, he was one of the judges of this talisman formation master exchange. His attainments in talisman formations were enough to rank him in the top 3 in the same galaxy. Moreover, the Heavenly Sound Formation created by the great master Tianyin was a powerful talisman formation master among elementary grade 5 talisman formations. It was comparable to an intermediate grade 5 talisman formation master. Qinchuan was able to inscribe such a difficult grade 5 talisman formation master when he had just broken through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master. Such talent could no longer be described as genius. The most exciting thing for the crowd was that they had personally witnessed the birth of a grade 5 talisman formation master. Booth D, 89, contestant number 109, Qinchuan. They would probably never forget this person's name and the scene they had witnessed today. Zhuangzi and Sophie revealed extremely excited expressions as they gazed at the Heavenly Sound Formation floating above Qinchuan's head. Zhuangzi's eyes couldn't help but turn red. Qinchuan didn't disappoint their trust and expectations. He had really succeeded in breaking through to become a grade 5 talisman formation master. He was the number 1 person of this generation who had never been seen before. Chapter 899. Qinchuan was oblivious to the cheers outside the booth. At this moment, his mind was completely immersed in his own mental world. Although Qinchuan didn't move from the outside and just sat there cross-legged, the inside Qinchuan was furiously writing in his mental world, completing one attempt after another. Finally, after failing 80 times, he succeeded in inscribing the Heavenly Sound Array and officially stepped into the ranks of a 5th grade formation master. The Heavenly Sound Array is a perception-type auxiliary formation. It uses sound to explore and transmit signals. Qinchuan looked at the Heavenly Sound Array before him with a smile on his face. Although the Heavenly Sound Array doesn't possess any offensive or defensive capabilities, it is a perfect combination of radar and alarm. It's really... Qinchuan suddenly frowned and looked around. He discovered that his mental world was showing signs of collapsing. Oh no, I've exhausted too much mental power to inscribe the Heavenly Sound Array. I've almost squeezed out all the mental power in my mind. I have to adjust my state and recover some mental power as soon as possible. After thinking about this, Qinchuan's figure immediately retreated from his mental world. His consciousness returned to his body, and he began to meditate without stopping. It was at this moment that the clamorous cheers outside traveled into his ears. Vote, vote. Vote for Qin. If such a genius can't shine in the next round of the competition, then he'll be a disgrace to the entire sane star system. We have to vote for Qin. If a fifth-grade formation master can't enter the next round, then no one else is worthy. One vote for each of us. Qin enters the finals early. Qin couldn't help but be slightly stunned when he heard these cheers. He slowly opened his eyes and looked forward. He was surprised to find that the originally deserted venue was actually packed with a black mass of spectators. There was no end to the crowd at a glance. Qin is awake. He's awake. When the people near the booth saw Qin open his eyes, they immediately shouted, causing the noisy scene to suddenly quiet down. Everyone looked at Qin, their eyes full of excitement and excitement. Boom! Earth-shattering cheers erupted once again. Some of the audience even threw the flowers in their hands onto the stage to show their support and love for Qin. Qin looked at the audience near the booth, his face full of shock. He did not understand why there were suddenly so many people on his side, but when he noticed the heavenly sound array floating above his head, he understood everything. It turns out that the heavenly sound array doesn't just appear in my mind. It can also be projected into the real world. Qin glanced at the heavenly sound array above his head, then slowly closed his eyes and began to meditate, no longer caring about the outside world. In the box, Yu sat still, but the expression on his face was extremely gloomy, even a little bit ugly. Through the crystal screen, he could clearly see the heavenly sound array floating above Qin's head. The faint silver-gray light emitted by the heavenly sound array was so dazzling in his eyes. Seeing the gloomy expression on Yu's face, Ling, who was standing beside him, did not even dare to breathe loudly. He knew that Yu was on the verge of exploding. If he said something wrong, Yu would definitely fly into a rage, and by then, he would have to bear the consequences. Geniuses who have passed the 9 levels of mysterious heaven tribulation are rare, but our Tushan family doesn't necessarily want them. However, a genius who has the law of thunder and can help others pass the tribulation is someone our Tushan family must have. And if this genius is also a level 5 talisman formation master. Yu's voice became lower and lower, but his eyes became brighter and brighter, and the look in his eyes became sharper and brighter. No matter what, Qin has to join our Tushan family. If he can't, we'll kill him. Hearing Yu's words, Ling, who was standing aside, couldn't help but reveal a trace of surprise in his eyes. He asked, "Are we still going to wait?" Hearing this, Yu took a deep breath and said, "What happened today is different from what happened when Qin passed the heavenly tribulation in Heath City. We can't shut so many people's mouths, and the news will definitely spread to other forces. If we push Qin too hard, we'll be pushing him into the arms of other forces. For now, we should focus on comforting Qin. As long as he doesn't show any intention of joining other forces, we don't have to do anything." Hearing Yu's words, Ling nodded and responded, "I understand. Go and choose a suitable gift. Go and congratulate Qin with the sincerity of our Tushan family." Yu then reminded Ling, "Remember, just congratulate him. Don't ask about anything else." "Got it," Ling replied, and turned around to prepare the gift. After Ling left, Yu took a deep look at Qin on the crystal screen. A trace of coldness flashed in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "Qin, the road is under your feet. How you want to walk it depends on your choice." Because Qin had broken through to become a 5th-level formation master, almost all the audience was attracted to this side. Although they couldn't see Qin's figure clearly, they still hoped to see the eye-catching heavenly sound formation. As a result, no one showed any interest in the other booths. The faces of the contestants were extremely unsightly. Who would have thought that a guy who was destined to be eliminated after drawing the worst lot would bounce back and make such a big scene? They also wanted to make some noise to attract the audience back, but now, except for someone who could break through to become a 5th-level formation master, there was no other way to attract the audience back. If it was really that easy to become a 5th-level formation master, they would have done a long time ago. There was no need to wait until now. What made the audience envious and sad the most was that they had heard that Qin Xuan was the super genius who had passed the mysterious Sky 9 levels tribulation. It was simply infuriating to compare oneself to others. The crowded situation near Booth D89 finally alarmed the higher-ups of Sinai City. The organizers had no choice but to disperse the crowd and let the audience return to their seats. However, in order to satisfy the curiosity of the audience, the organizers still made concessions and allowed the audience to come in batches to see the heavenly sound formation and Qin Xuan. Only then did the audience disperse in satisfaction and not cause any big trouble. It was also at this time that the various forces in Tron Nebula received the information about Qin Xuan. They knew that an unparalleled genius who was extremely talented in both cultivation and formation arts had been born in the Sinai galaxy. Chapter 900. Sinai City, Imperial City. Odyssey sat on a golden bench as he gazed subtly at the envoys from the 4 powers standing below the stage. The expression on his face could be said to be a little playful. Skyrime Valley, 9-tier mountain, Hull Corporation, and Bright Moon Palace. I really didn't expect that 4 of the 10 great powers of Tron Nebula would come in just a short 2 hours after the incident. Your presence really brings light to my humble Imperial City. When he first heard that someone had broken through to become a level 5 formation master at the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference, he had guessed that various powers would come to recruit him. However, he didn't expect these powers to come so quickly and with such shocking backgrounds. Haha, Your Majesty must be joking. We're also thirsty for talent. The 9-tier mountain envoy with a goatee chuckled and said to Odyssey, I only hope that your Majesty can arrange for us to meet this young man. As for other matters, we won't trouble your Majesty. My Hulk Corporation wants this person. The Hulk Corporation envoy with a large figure and a green body snorted coldly, expressing his determination to get Qin Xuan. You people from the Hulk Corporation are all muscles for brains. It's a complete waste for such an outstanding formation master to join your Hulk Corporation. A beautiful young woman in a palace dress said indifferently, Only my Skyrime Valley is Qin Xuan's best choice. Although the Skyrime Valley is not bad, it's still a little lacking compared to my Bright Moon Palace. After all, our Bright Moon Palace is ranked 6th among the 10 great powers. A middle-aged man in a green robe with a bright moon symbol on his forehead smiled faintly, as if he didn't take the competitors beside him seriously at all. Odyssey's heart moved slightly when he heard the exchange of words below the stage. He said to them, Envoys, Qin Xuan is currently participating in the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference. Why don't we meet him after the opening ceremony ends? The envoys from various powers frowned slightly when they heard Odyssey's words and were slightly displeased. The reason they were in such a hurry to find him was that their strength was considered to be at the bottom of the 10 great powers. If they didn't try to recruit Qin Xuan as soon as possible, once other stronger powers appeared, they wouldn't have the slightest chance at all. Great Emperor, can't you make arrangements for us as soon as possible? The 9th Mountain Emissary frowned as he looked at Odysseus. Or is it that the power behind us isn't enough in the eyes of the Emperor? The emissary of the Sky Rhythm Valley sneered and said to Odysseus, Or is it that the great Emperor has promised someone else, so he is unwilling to help? Odyssey chuckled in the face of their overbearing attitude. His gaze suddenly became sharp as he said in an indifferent tone, What? If I don't help you, are you going to attack me? Seeing Odysseus's expression change, everyone's expression also changed slightly. Although they all had big forces behind them, they were only at the Huashan stage. There was a huge gap between them and Odysseus, who was at the Dongshu stage. If Odysseus really got angry and attacked them regardless of the consequences, then they would be the ones to suffer in the end. Since the great emperor is busy, we won't disturb you any further. Farewell. The people of the Bright Moon Palace were the most sensible. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, they immediately took their leave without any hesitation. Seeing this, the people of the other forces also turned and left. In the blink of an eye, everyone had left. Odysseus saw them leave and could not help but snort coldly. He said in a low voice, "They're just some juniors at the Huashan stage. Do they really think that they can do whatever they want because they have big forces behind them?" As a mighty practitioner at the Dongshu stage and the lord of the Sinai galaxy, Odysseus was neither servile nor overbearing even when facing the leaders of those big forces. When had he ever been forced by some juniors like this? If these people had not left in time, perhaps he would have taught them a lesson and let them know what it meant to speak and act with caution. But that young man called Qinchuan is really extraordinary. Not only did he overcome the 9 levels of the profound heaven tribulation at such a young age, he even broke through to become a level 5 talisman formation master. Truly a rare natural talent. If such an unparalleled genius suddenly appeared in my Sinai galaxy, it would absolutely be a loss to my Sinai galaxy if he was recruited by another power. Odysseus muttered in a low voice and narrowed his eyes slightly. He had to think of a way to make Qinchuan stay in the Sinai galaxy. During the last few hours of the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference, Qinchuan was like an animal in a zoo that was being visited by the audience over and over again. Every single person was filled with curiosity towards him as if they'd seen a novel species. Even with Qinchuan's mental state, he couldn't help but be slightly moved. It'll end in another 3 minutes. Qinchuan couldn't help but reveal a wisp of helplessness as he gazed at the audience that were slowly moving forward in an orderly manner near the exhibition platform. Not only were these audience surrounding him, some even shouted at him and asked him to cooperate with them, such as making a scissor gesture. Qinchuan was naturally unwilling to agree to these requests, but as he gazed at the voting devices they waved in their hands, the corners of Qinchuan's mouth curled into a smile in the end, and he made an extremely forced scissor gesture. Ding dong. After a wave of clear ringing of the bell, the opening ceremony of the Talisman Formation Master Exchange Conference had finally come to an end, and Qinchuan was finally able to descend from the exhibition platform and obtain relief. Qinchuan, Zhuosisi walked swiftly to Qinchuan's side, and her eyes were filled with delight as she gazed at Qinchuan. Qinchuan chuckled as he gazed at the smile on Zhuosisi's face, and then he asked, "How was it? I probably didn't disappoint you, right? You're really too formidable." Zhuosisi gazed at Qinchuan while her heart was filled with joy. "I believe that with your performance, you'll surely be able to slaughter everyone in the upcoming competition." "I hope so." Qinchuan smiled. "Let's leave this place first. I'm afraid I'll be surrounded and watched like an animal again." As they spoke, Qinchuan and Zhuosisi had already turned around and boarded a flying shuttle that was parked at the side. They left in advance before the audience gathered here, and they set off towards the Rose Hotel. On the way back to the Rose Hotel, Zhuosisi gazed at Qinchuan and said, "Tu Shanling contacted me earlier. He wants to meet you." Qinchuan's gaze flashed slightly when he heard Zhuosisi, and then he asked, "Do you think I should meet him? Why did he come looking for me?" Zhuosisi sighed, and then she said to Qinchuan, "It's none other than for the sake of representing the Tu Shan clan to recruit you. You're already sufficiently outstanding, and now that you've broken through to the 5th level of the Talisman Formation Master Realm, it can be said to have caused your status to rise explosively. In my opinion, it isn't just the Tu Shan clan that wants to recruit you. The other powers will surely extend an olive branch to you as well. You better be mentally prepared." Chapter 901. Congratulations, Qinchuan. Qinchuan and Zhuosisi arrived at the entrance of the Rose Hotel. As soon as they got off the shuttle, they bumped into Tu Shanling, who was full of smiles. Hearing Tu Shanling's words, Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Tu Shanling, "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Ling. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. I haven't given you the gift yet. It's not too late to thank me after you see the gift." Tu Shanling chuckled and said to Qin Chuan, "But before I see the gift, Brother Qin, don't you want to invite me to your room?" Hearing this, Qin Chuan glanced at Tu Shanling and said, "Then please." Qin Chuan, Zhuo and Zhuo entered the Rose Hotel and came to Qin Chuan's room. Qin Chuan and Tu Shanling sat down while Zhuo went to make tea. At this time, Tu Shanling looked at Qin Chuan and said with emotion, "Brother Qin, to be honest, I didn't expect you to reach such heights. A fifth-grade talisman formation master who passed the 9 heavenly tribulations. Your future will be limitless. Maybe I'll need Brother Qin's help in the future." Qin Chuan smiled and replied, "Brother Ling, you must be joking. You're a member of the Tu Shan family. Who dares to offend you in Tron Nebula?" Tu Shanling shook his head and said with emotion, "After all, it's the strength of the whole family, not my personal strength. To be honest, I really envy you. With your current status, you don't even have to bow to the patriarch of the Tu Shan family. You can sit on the same level as the 7th elder. I'm afraid I'll have to look up to you in the future." Originally, although Qin Chuan was talented, Tu Shanling didn't feel that he was inferior to Qin Chuan. After all, he had the Tu Shan family behind him, which was the strongest force in Tron Nebula. However, the situation was different now. Qin Chuan was not just a genius with unrealized potential, but a genuine 5th-grade talisman formation master. What was more terrifying was that Qin Chuan was only 72 years old this year. A 72-year-old 5th-grade talisman formation master who passed the 9 heavenly tribulations. Just thinking about it was terrifying. As for why Tu Shanling knew that Qin Chuan was 72 years old, it was naturally because Qin Chuan had to register his age when he participated in the competition. It was worth mentioning that Qin Chuan also had to take a bone-touching test at that time. He found an excuse not to take the bone-touching test and asked Sophie to use her identity as Grand Duke Angel's personal guard to fool this matter. If Qin Chuan had no choice but to take the bone-touching test and reveal his true age of 27 years old, Tron Nebula wouldn't be the only one who was shocked now. Brother Ling, although I've become a 5th-grade talisman formation master, I still have many things to learn from you. You don't have to belittle yourself. Qin Chuan looked at Tu Shanling and said, "We can still sit together and chat and drink tea." Doesn't that already explain a lot? Hearing this, Tu Shanling laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "You're right. I was thinking too much." Qin Chuan picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Then, he said to Tu Shanling, "Brother Ling, we're all on the same side. Let's be frank. Why did you come to find me this time?" Tu Shanling smiled and took out an exquisite gift box from his storage ring. He placed it in front of Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "I really came here this time to give you a congratulatory gift. I have no other intentions and no other mission. It's as simple as that." As he spoke, Tu Shanling pointed at the gift box in front of Qin Chuan and said, "Open it and take a look. I hope you like it." Qin Chuan picked up the gift box and opened it. Inside the gift box was a light blue talisman pen. The talisman pen was engraved with a pattern of a qilin. The pattern was so lifelike that it looked like it was going to jump out of the pen and release an amazing power. Seeing this talisman pen, Qin Chuan couldn't help but show a trace of surprise in his eyes. What a powerful talisman pen! Hearing Qin Chuan's exclamation, Tu Shanling smiled and explained to Qin Chuan, "This talisman pen is called the Qilin pen. It was carved from a stone that was soaked in the blood of the ancient Thunder Qilin. The hair on the tip of the pen is the softest hair from the stomach of the Thunder Beast. It has the property of thunder affinity. Combining the two together, this talisman pen is definitely the most suitable for you." In fact, Qin Chuan didn't need Tu Shanling to explain. He could feel that this talisman pen seemed to be tailor-made for him. It perfectly matched all of his features. This talisman pen is too precious. Qin Chuan raised his head, looked at Tu Shanling, and said with a complicated tone, "If I accept it, I will owe your Tushan family a huge favor. Qin Chuan knew that Tu Shanling couldn't have given him such a precious talisman pen. Elder Seven must have asked Tu Shanling to give this talisman pen to him. Qin Chuan truly liked this talisman pen, but if he accepted it, he would owe the Tushan family a huge favor. What's so precious about it? Just take it. Tu Shanling looked at Qin Chuan and smiled. This talisman pen is indeed precious in your hands, but in the hands of people like us who don't have the property of thunder, it's useless. What's the use of it? Hearing Tu Shanling's words, Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said to Tu Shanling, "In that case, I will accept this talisman pen. Please go back and tell Elder Seven that I appreciate the Tushan family's kindness. This time, I owe you a favor." "Haha, since you said so, I won't be polite." Tu Shanling laughed and said to Qin Chuan, "I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye." "Goodbye." Qin Chuan stood up and walked Tu Shanling out of the room. He stood at the door and watched Tu Shanling walk into the elevator. Then, he turned back to the room and looked at the talisman pen again. Zhuosisi looked at Qin Chuan's expression and said to Qin Chuan, "You don't seem to want to owe him a favor." Qin Chuan sighed and said to Zhuosisi, "This talisman pen is very important to me. It can at least increase the speed of inscribing 5th-level talisman arrays by a quarter. Moreover, it can be compatible with my body and mind, making it easier for me to inscribe 5th-level talisman arrays." Tu Shan saw this, so he asked Tu Shanling to send this talisman pen to me. Zhuosisi glanced at the talisman brush when she heard this, and then she gazed at Qin Chuan before she spoke with a rather subtle tone. "They've surely discerned that you're a person that values relationships greatly, so they use such methods to make you owe them a favor." Qin Chuan laughed bitterly and helplessly said, "But it's obvious that I saw through their intentions. At the same time, I allowed them to succeed. Among cultivators, there are very few who keep their promises like you." Zhuosisi looked at Qin Chuan. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be so embarrassed. You have to have conscience. Qin Chuan smiled. Without a conscience, what's the point of being powerful? Chapter 902. Less than 10 minutes after Qin Chuan sent Tu Shanling off, someone came to pay him a visit. "I'm Su Rong, a deacon of Bright Moon Palace." Su Rong stood at the entrance and gazed at Qin Chuan with a smile on his face. He seemed extremely refined, and the first impression he gave others was very good. Qin Chuan looked at Su Rong and asked, "May I know why Mr. Su is looking for me? I heard that Mr. Qin has always been alone and has yet to find a place to belong to, so I've specially come to recruit Mr. Qin on behalf of Bright Moon Palace. I wish to invite Mr. Qin to join Bright Moon Palace, and my Bright Moon Palace is willing to treat you with the position of an elder." Su Rong said to Qin Chuan, "If Mr. Qin has any other conditions, please feel free to raise them. Our Bright Moon Palace will try our best to satisfy Mr. Qin's needs." Qin Chuan glanced at Su Rong with a slightly subtle gaze when he heard this, and then he replied, "I'm sorry, I only wish to properly participate in the Talisman Formation Master Exchange, and I don't intend to join any power for now." Su Rong wasn't surprised when he heard Qin Chuan's words, and he chuckled before he said to Qin Chuan, "Mr. Qin is already a grade 5 Talisman Formation Master now, yet you still treat the competition seriously. You're truly a role model for our generation. Since Mr. Qin doesn't intend to join any power, then I won't disturb you any longer. But before I leave, can we exchange contact information so that Mr. Qin can contact me if he needs anything in the future?" Qin Chuan didn't refuse Su Rong's request to add him as friend. He directly added Su Rong as a friend, and then he watched Su Rong leave. Qin Chuan originally thought that he could finally have some peace and quiet, but who would have imagined that Su Rong was merely the beginning? After this, he successively met the representatives of a few dozen powers. It's truly too tiring. It's simply even more tiring than when I inscribed the Heaven Note Talisman Formation earlier. I truly never imagined that so many powers would actually come knocking on my door. Moreover, All of them aren't powers from Sane Galaxy. It's truly too terrifying. Qin Chuan sat on the sofa with a bitter smile on his face. He didn't plan to continue receiving people who came in the future. He might as well hang his contact number outside the door. If anyone came in the future, they could just add his contact number. He really didn't want to see anyone again. Zhuo looked at Qin Chuan's painful expression and chuckled. Then she said to Qin Chuan, "Actually, you don't have to meet these people. Why do you have to meet so many people?" Qin Chuan sighed helplessly and said to Zhuo, "I'm just trying to protect myself." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhuo was slightly stunned. Then after thinking for a moment, she understood what Qin Chuan meant. Her gaze towards Qin Chuan couldn't help but become complicated. She whispered, "You're trying to deal with the various powers so that they would think that they have the opportunity to recruit you. This way, no one will secretly attack you in order to prevent other powers from recruiting you, right?" Qin Chuan nodded and replied, "That's exactly what I meant. Although this move seems to be useless and can be seen through at a glance, it's the only way I can think of right now. After all, I'm alone. If I make these powers feel dissatisfied, then they will casually do something that will make me feel very uncomfortable." Qin Chuan felt somewhat helpless. If he had any other choice, he wouldn't have used such a stupid method. Although he was now a 5th-tier talisman formation master, the heavenly sound formation couldn't help him in battle at all. Therefore, his battle strength didn't increase at all. Any Dongshu stage expert could easily deal with him. Seeing the helpless expression on Qin Chuan's face, Zhuo sighed and said to Qin Chuan, "In the past, when I was in Caesar City, I felt that it was extremely difficult for me to maintain the balance among so many people. However, compared to you now, my troubles are really nothing." "All right, let's not talk about this today." Qin Chuan looked at Zhuo. "You should tell me about the next competition. I want to know what I need to do in the next competition." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhuo replied without hesitation, "Battle. The next competition will be between you talisman formation masters. The 100 contestants will be divided into 50 groups by drawing lots for internal battles. The winners will enter the next round, and the losers will be eliminated." Hearing this, Qin Chuan asked curiously, "Will we be using talisman formations to battle?" Zhuo nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "Although battle formations of the 5th tier and above are rare, battle formations of the 5th tier and below are still relatively common. Therefore, most talisman formation masters have several types of battle formations. You should know quite a few battle formations, right?" Qin Chuan nodded and replied, "Although I don't know many battle formations, it's enough for this competition." With the strength of Qin Chuan's mental strength, he could inscribe a 4th-tier battle formation in the blink of an eye. He could eliminate his opponents before they could inscribe their battle formations. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be very easy for him to enter the top 3. "Is there anyone I need to pay special attention to?" Qin Chuan looked at Zhuo. "I'm talking about those talisman formation Dao geniuses. Although I'm a 5th talisman formation master now, the heavenly sound formation won't be of any use in battle. I'm basically still an advanced talisman formation master. I've already considered this point for you. Among the 100 contestants, there are only 2 people you need to be careful of. They are Lang and Shu Tao." Zhuo said to Qin Chuan, "Shu Tao is a genius that the imperial family recruited a few years ago. He's now 89 years old and is already at the great circle of the nascent soul stage. He's only a step away from the soul formation stage. Under the meticulous nurturing of the imperial family, his attainments in talisman formation Dao are extremely high. He's mastered at least 20 types of battle formations. In terms of battle achievements, he's never been at a disadvantage against a 5th talisman formation master. Although the 5th talisman formation master was an auxiliary talisman formation master, this is still shocking enough. As for the other person, Lang, he's the most important person you need to pay attention to." When Lang was mentioned, Zhuo's expression instantly became extremely serious. She seriously said to Qin Chuan, "Lang is from Wolf City. He's the son of the Talisman Formation Master Guild's president. Just like you, he has the ability to create void formations. Moreover, he's a standard battle formation master. He only knows battle formations. Among them, there are at least 10 fourth battle formations. Hearings with Cece's introduction of Lang, Qingchuan's expression also became somewhat serious. If Lang was really as abnormal as was Cece said, then he was indeed an opponent worthy of being treated seriously. I understand. Thank you for your reminder. Qingchuan exhaled and said to Cece, I'll pay attention to these two people. Cece glanced at Qingchuan and said in a low voice, Don't feel too much pressure. You've already performed very well. Just your best. Chapter 903. Early the next morning, the results of the Talisman Array Master Exchange Conference were announced to the world. As the only Level 5 Talisman Array Master, Qingchuan's opponent became the focus of everyone's attention. Number 109 Qingchuan versus number 77 Wang Qi. When the audience saw the results of the draw, they were all excited because Wang Qi came from Black Chess City and was the descendant of the Grand Duke of Black Chess. Speaking of which, the Grand Duke of Black Chess was also a legendary figure in the Sinastar system. When he was young, the Grand Duke of Black Chess was just an unknown soldier. After a few decades of hibernation, he became the commander of an army with more than 10,000 soldiers under his command. In a war against the Void Creatures, the Grand Duke of Black Chess led his 10,000 soldiers to outflank the Void Creatures and directly attacked the Void Creatures' rear base, establishing the foundation for victory in that war in one fell swoop. Because of this battle, the Grand Duke of Black Chess became famous and became a well-known hero of the Sinastar system. It was also because of this battle that the Grand Duke of Black Chess had a meteoric rise. In less than 100 years, he became a commander and was conferred the title of Grand Duke of Black Chess with Black Chess City as his fief. After a few hundred years, the Grand Duke of Black Chess had countless children and grandchildren. However, Wang Qi was the only one he doted on the most and had been personally nurtured by him. Although Wang Qi's cultivation was only at the great circle of the nascent soul stage, Wang Qi's attainments in the Tao of Talisman Arrays had almost reached the peak that could be achieved at his age. He was only one step away from becoming a Level 5 Talisman Array Master. If Qingchuan didn't appear, perhaps Wang Qi would be the one who received the most attention. However, when Qingchuan appeared with the title of Level 5 Talisman Array Master, he was destined to be the true main character. Just as everyone was discussing the results of the draw, Qingchuan also received the news and understood some of Wang Qi's past information. This Wang Qi isn't simple. The reason why I didn't mention him to you yesterday is because this person is slightly inferior to Lang and Shu Tao. However, if you want to rank him, the threat that he poses to you is enough to be ranked in the top 5. Cece sat in front of Qingchuan and felt very apologetic for her mistake yesterday. This isn't your fault. After all, you didn't know who I would be in the same group as me. Who would have thought that I would encounter such a tough nut to crack? Qingchuan chuckled and said to Cece, However, you don't have to be too worried. Wang Qi is powerful, but I can deal with him. In terms of battle formations, Qingchuan might not be stronger than Wang Qi, but in terms of mental strength, Qingchuan was confident that he could crush Wang Qi. Grand Duke, the Grand Duke Duke, Grand Duke Duke, Grand Duke Grand Duke, was, of, in the rumors, the Grand Duke of Black Chess and the Grand Duke of Angel once had a relationship. I don't know whether it's true or not. Qingchuan looked at Cece in surprise. He subconsciously said, There is such a rumor outside? Cece nodded and whispered to Qingchuan, I only dare to tell you this rumor. I don't dare to say it outside. Whether it's Grand Duke Duke Angel or Grand Duke Black, they are not people I can provoke. If they find out, I'm afraid my life will be in danger. Hearing Cece's words, Qingchuan asked curiously, Can you be more specific? What is the rumor about? Cece explained to Qingchuan, Rumor has it that after Grand Duke Angel's husband, Grand Duke Rose, died, Grand Duke Black pursued Grand Duke Angel. He did not give up after being rejected many times. As for more, I don't know. Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a subtle expression when he heard this. From the informations of Cece said, it wasn't difficult to guess that Grand Duke Angel didn't have a good impression of the Grand Duke of Black Chess. He even hated him. Now that he met the Grand Duke of Black Chess's junior, things would become a little lively. Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about this, the doorbell of the room suddenly rang. When he opened the door and saw Sophie standing at the door, his heart moved slightly. He asked, "Did Grand Duke Angel ask me to see her?" Sophie nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "It was indeed the Grand Duke who asked me to call you over. If you have nothing else, let's go." Qin Chuan and Sophie were going to see Grand Duke Angel. So as with Cece took the initiative to leave and return to her room. On the way to Grand Duke Angel's room, Qin Chuan asked Sophie curiously, "Do you know why Grand Duke Angel suddenly wants to see me?" Although Qin Chuan had already guessed the answer in his heart, he still wanted to confirm it. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Sophie could not help but have a strange expression on her face. She glanced at Qin Chuan and replied, "Maybe it's about Grand Duke Black. I think you should have heard some rumors, right?" Qin Chuan nodded and said to Sophie, "I have indeed heard some rumors, but I don't think they are true." "No, then they are true." Sophie sighed. The Grand Duke of Black Chess did pursue the Grand Duke of Angel, and it was earlier than the rumors. Hearing Sophie's answer, Qin Chuan could not help but have a look of astonishment on his face. He said in surprise, "Earlier?" Sophie nodded and said to Qin Chuan, "In fact, Grand Duke Angel, Grand Duke Black, and Grand Duke Rose were friends as early as when Grand Duke Black was just a small commander." Qin Chuan could not help but have a strange expression on his face when he heard this. He asked, "Is it so cliché?" Before Sophie could finish speaking, Qin Chuan had already guessed that there must have been a love triangle between the three of them that only appeared in a melodramatic romance drama. Sophie glanced at the expression on Qin Chuan's face and whispered, "There are surveillance devices in the hotel. If you want the Grand Duke to see your current face, then please continue to remain the same. Don't say that I didn't remind you." Hearing Sophie's kind reminder, Qin Chuan's expression suddenly became serious. He coughed lightly and whispered to Sophie, "What's going on?" Sophie continued, "It's just as you think. Grand Duke Angel chose Grand Duke Rose between Grand Duke Black and Grand Duke Rose. Grand Duke Angel thought that Grand Duke Rose was the real hero, and because of this, Grand Duke Black led the army to attack the Void Creature's rear in a fit of anger and made a great contribution." Qin Chuan was a little confused. Hearing Sophie's words, the reason why Grand Duke Black led the army to attack the Void Creature's rear so bravely was actually because of emotional trauma. It was actually purely to prove to Grand Duke Angel that he could also be a hero. Hey, even fantasy dramas don't dare to shoot like this. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.